two, one. Before we get started on Thursdays with Moire, I'd just like to dedicate this episode to Vangelis, the great composer behind Blade Runner, Chariots of Fire, and many more. Unfortunately, passed away today, so I know we aren't talking about any of your movies on this episode, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, this goes out to you. Rest in peace, Mr. Vangelis. And welcome to another episode of Thursdays with Moire, episode titled Re-Education Through Music, and you'll know why it's called that in just a second. I'm your host, Ian Taylor. Joining me tonight is my wonderful co-host, musician, artist, Devin King, and we have not one, but two special guests today, and perhaps they would like to introduce themselves, because they do a much better job of that than I ever could. Let's start with the drummer in the group.
Hello, everybody. Check 1, 2. You can hear me?
Listening. We hear
Awesome.
you.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Costa Chatzis. I'm a drummer.
You cut out there.
You done muted yourself.
I think you muted yourself.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Ah.
Played himself.
Yep.
Oh,
All right,
man.
let's start with the guitarist
he's,
then.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
while he's trying to get
That's
his
a rhythm section for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I've always had to drag this guy kicking and screaming. My name's Dylan. I'm a guitarist and musician based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about who I am as we go. So yeah, thanks for having me on, boys.
You're way out in Halley, eh?
Yeah, California.
California.
Yeah.
That's
Hello.
Oh, is he back?
Has he
Hey.
returned to us?
Hey, how you doing?
Jesus.
Hey.
What happened there? No clue.
No clue at all.
Did you guys get my introduction at least? Was it like...
No, we did not.
We got your voice cracking when saying Chatzis?
That's all we
Never
got
said
of that.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so my name is Costa Chatzis. I'm a drummer. I've been playing for 20 plus years. I've been on stage for 10 plus years, and I've been teaching for about 7.
Nice.
Thank you for having me, y'all.
Oh, by the way,
And you've been on Discord for like maybe a year? I don't know.
still
That's
learning.
right.
And by the way, that guitar from earlier, who was playing that dang guitar?
Oh, that was me.
Ooh, nice.
Good stuff.
Now,
Yeah,
is that?
thanks.
I just want to ask, what guitar are you using?
That is a Fender Stratocaster, American Fender Stratocaster Deluxe. I bought in like 2004 or something like that. Yeah,
Nice.
Classic, iconic.
Mhm.
I've got a Squire strap myself because I'm
nice.
cheap.
I like
Costa,
cheap
you
guitars, too.
Oh, we lost
shit,
him.
he just
No, Costa.
Costa just said an Irish goodbye. I was about to say, how do we know each other? We've known each other for a few years now. We go by a little bit. Man, technical difficulties are just following us to the grave today.
Yeah,
Um,
Costa.
But
Please go
Well,
back
while
to us.
he's not in the room, I will say, Costa and I go back a little bit. I think we first met each other at a show, metal show, back in like 2013. I think he was playing with a little band called Bulwark at the time. And Costa, you're back. I was just talking about you. So I was just saying a little bit about how we know each other. I first met you when you were playing a metal gig, I think with a little
Yes.
band called Bulwark back in, 2013, 2014 around, perhaps. Um,
Yes.
and I said hi because you were wearing a Spirited Away shirt.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got that shirt in a bag of shirts from my uncle.
nice. And I remember you were also having issues with the kick pedal at that point. But anyway,
Yeah, today it's internet. That day was kick pedal.
there you
yeah,
go.
welcome.
You know
But
how to pick
no,
him, Devin.
since then you've been in a few different bands, and I was picking up cameras at that point, and I helped
Yes.
film a couple music videos for your group Bad Read, and I had a lot of fun doing that.
That was
And,
incredible. That was like a 14-hour day.
Holy shit, yeah, that was nuts. We were
It
just
was
out in the
literally
woods.
from morning to like midnight. Remember, we lugged so much stuff.
Oh man,
Like it
just
was incredible.
film gear
But
and music
you guys
gear.
put
Yeah.
something like you guys really put something amazing together at the end of that multiple times for us. So yeah, that was Bad Read era. That would have been 2015, 2016 time.
Oh man, what a time. We really butted heads, Garrett and I, but I think we made something good out of it, so I'm happy about that.
The video for Stained Glass is
Oh,
superb.
It was really good. I really liked it.
classic. I love that
Yeah.
video.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
Love the
Yeah, that
shooting
was,
anyway.
style for that one.
Man,
That's
that
just a little bit
as
of
well.
background.
Just to let you know, that video, like that was of the things that I have created or written or whatever it is. That music video saw the most eyes, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
That's the
No,
most
I'm really,
views.
I'm really proud of how it came out. So
Yeah, like
yeah,
I think
man.
that video alone had, like, last I checked, something like 18,000 views on it. Like
Dang.
I've been a part of things that have more views than that, but what I have, like, been a chief contributor of, that's the most, yeah, yeah. So thank you.
No worries, man. I was happy to be there, and it was good for me too to kind of learn the roots of filmmaking, and that was just going out there doing it myself, and I think that gave me somewhat of a leg up when I went to film school because I did that. So I'm really
Yeah.
happy with how that turned out. But anyway, fast forward. Now we're doing this film podcast. Podcast. I can't speak today. We're all squeaking.
Oh
Um,
god.
but I really wanted to hone this in just because, I've been learning music my whole life. I've always been very passionate about it. It's something that was always, accessible to me in some way or another. I remember my mom bought me like a Casio keyboard when I was like basically an infant. And I never learned how to play it properly, but I always had fun just making noises on it. And I still do to this day. Um, just noise making. And this is something that isn't really accessible in all parts of the world. I know I have a friend from the Bahamas who's been on this podcast before, Bernard, and he said how music wasn't always that accessible to him. I mean, he always, liked singing and such, but that wasn't something that he had as much access to. So this is something I'm really passionate about, and it's really, I really like looking back at these films depicting the world of music and how it's
Hmm.
being taught kind of in schools, and really like to reflect on, what's the reality of things versus how are they depicted in these movies. Like I remember Mr. Holland's Opus. Um, I think that was something that they showed us in school and something that my parents were a huge fan of. And that's probably the closest to seeing how music was in school that I've seen in a film. Although there might be other examples. I figured that this was one that was good to dig back up because I remember I think it got like an Academy Award nomination, but it really doesn't get much buzz otherwise. So I guess that's my unofficial
It
introduction
was
to that
great.
movie.
Oh
It's a
god,
great
yeah.
movie.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I was off behind on that. The on the airs didn't quite catch up because that was such a smooth intro.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, what do we think of this film? So, I remember seeing this back when I was a kid. This came out in what, 97? So, I was 2 when it came out. I didn't see it when it came out, but I saw it some years later, probably when it ended up on VHS. And I'm sure they wheeled in one of those old school CRTs on a cart and showed us in the music classroom one day.
The best.
Um, that and Fantasia 2000. I remember those two movies
Yes.
specifically
Oh yeah.
being shown in school.
The real
But
Kino.
Costa, I believe this was your first time seeing this movie?
It was, and I was pleasantly surprised. I watched it again.
Really? Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
Damn.
it's a long movie.
Oh yeah.
It
It's
is a
great
long
though.
movie,
It
but
kind of it kind of floats by.
yeah, I think it's the first or one of the only movies that I've seen about teaching that really encompasses more or less an entire career of the occupation, where
Right,
he
right.
he kind of stumbles into teaching as like a backup to him not being a successful, composer or musician on his own terms. And it's
Hmm.
something that he ends up doing for the rest of his life. And I guess finding meaning through in some way through the students that he teaches. And I thought it was a really beautiful film for that. I do think it is overtly sentimental in a lot of ways. It's a very 90s movie, but I also
Oh
can't
God,
hate
yeah.
it. Like I think like even with all the hamminess and the over sentimentality, I still find myself being caught up in it, especially around the midpoint when he finds out about his son. I won't spoil that right away, but that to me still grabs me, even with everything.
Yeah, those scenes are pretty with his son are pretty, like, gripping, and, like, Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
heavy. It's heavy.
Dylan, did you see this movie before?
I have never seen this movie until we had to watch it for the show. So no, I was
What
really
did you?
impressed. I liked it
Okay.
quite a bit.
Nice.
And I thought it was really funny. I actually found I had kind of the inverse effect. I really appreciated the sentimentality,
Hmm.
like quite a bit. I really appreciated the sort of earnestness that it presented its subject matter with. And I find that's something that's like sorely lacking from a lot of movies nowadays. A lot of things seem pretty sterile and kind of like John Wick is a really good example. It's like how much can we take out of a character? I find that watching a movie like this was like, oh man, this was like a big sort of a big like smack in the face. It was kind of a reminder of like, oh yeah, there are like movies can span a lot of different things, and like, and it's okay to have camp because movies last a long time. When you go back and like watch a movie like this, like I can tell that this is one of those movies that like if it came on TV and I was on the couch, like I would have kept it on, you know?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of those movies that probably, I mean, I know Richard Dreyfuss was nominated for Best Actor, and I think they created the Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation that advocates for like music education afterwards, but otherwise I don't hear a lot of buzz about it. But I do think it is something that probably ends up on TV quite a bit and probably picks up a little more steam that way. This is what happened with Shawshank Redemption as well, where it wasn't really a huge box office success, but on TV it kind of gained a
Blew
new
up.
life.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, that's a very refreshing take. I'm glad that you appreciated kind of the
Yeah,
sentimentality of it, because
yeah.
that's something that's probably, I mean, that's the first thing film bros would probably attack. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, that's the thing. That's one thing I find about about I'm not a big film guy, so take this with its designated grain of salt. I am a music guy, but I do find that film guys tend to look it's like they tend to look a little more at technique than they do about striking an emotional core or striking an emotional nerve. That tends to
Mm.
be overlooked a little bit, and subtext I think tends to be overlooked a little bit. Um, but that's just me. Like I thought it was really interesting. The movie is wrestling with um, the sort of like relitigation of the 60s in 1995 because that was a very hot button thing at the time. Like
Mm.
the countercultural revolution was coming back up, like which I think kind of culminated in that really angry Woodstock 99. But like people were looking for things like Bill Clinton happened in and around this time. People were like they voted Democrat, like it was kind of an Obama type like hope sort of time. So for this movie to open with Richard Dreyfuss pulling up to this school and having them pull off, rather replace Ulysses S. Grant with John F. Kennedy, like that kind of paints the whole situation in the 90s right then and there, and it's kind of an interesting little time capsule because you just wouldn't see something like that today, period. You know what I mean? Either way, because it would likely turn into some conversation, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I think the setting that they set up and kind of the political background, like it's there, and I think it does contextualize it a little bit more. Like that's something that wasn't a thing that we were going to get into, but I do think that that is important. Like they had these flashbacks of when MLK is shot throughout, and I think he started in like the 1950s as his teacher, and again he just kind of stumbled into this gig, as he calls it. Like if it doesn't work out, I'll try something else. But then he ends up being there for like 2 or 3 decades. I think he's there from like the 50s to at least the 70s or the 80s, maybe
which I
even
will tell you is the most musician thing about this movie is that he
100%.
calls his day job a gig, and it's always temporary because we are constantly on the move, whether mentally,
Interesting.
emotionally, or physically. That's like and his place is messy. That's the other very accurate.
Oh, 1000%. Oh my God. And that's what I love about this is that there is a sense of realism there. And
Really?
Yeah,
actually, that reminds me of a quote I heard from people in the repair business saying there's nothing more permanent than a temporary solution that works. Um, which I think
That's
is
Wow.
very apt for. No, I think it's very apt for what for his situation. Like, this is just a temporary gig, but then he ends up finding a lot of meaning through it, and he gets back to like writing his music every so often, but very sporadically. It feels like a non-starter, but it all builds up toward the end, and I thought it was rather beautiful. And almost like, and it's like his masterwork was all the people's lives that he affected, which again, some people can look as hokey, but honestly, I think it's very grounded in reality, and it's
Well,
very
man,
touching.
I've been teaching for 7 8 years now, and I've got a student with me whom I've been teaching for 5 or 6 years, like almost the entire time. They're still with me, and like I've watched this kid grow from like 4'11" to 5'6". Like
Yeah,
he was tiny when he came in, and like now he's like, and he's incredible. He's killing like intermediate drummer, and he's like, I don't know, he's got to be like 12. Like he's been with me that long, and
Wow.
so when I saw the end of that movie, and just like now we're in the present day of '95 or whenever the movie was made, and his students come back, and he's like, and even though he's been basically deposed from his position because of cuts in the arts, which is even to this day very timely. Um,
sadly, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, we still haven't figured it out. Um, but when they all come back to express their gratitude for and on the I love the touch of all the musicians on stage, and it says class of '62, class of '92, like all these little like, oh man, that just like I shed a couple tears because I'm like, you when you impart music on other people, you do like you're with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and it's a really beautiful thing, and I mean, man, ah, I'm getting emotional just a little bit just thinking
Well,
about it.
that kind of goes back to what I'm talking about. I mean, you can say, realism is great, but brutalism in film, I think, is something that needs to kind of end soon. Like the green screen type thing, it just
Oh yeah.
looks like the green screen thing. But then there's also, I mean, there's just like emotionally brutalist thing. There's no like in
It's like edginess. It's like edginess and kind of
um
amorality,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I suppose I don't know about amorality. I think the morality is pretty clear, and I think, um,
mm,
It's
but
less
what I mean
spite, I
more
think.
is emotionally brutal in that it's like it's attempt to scrub camp from the reading of it, from watching of it, um,
mm,
has created like it almost kind of creates this like facsimile of reality that's almost like more weird than our actual weirdness in a way. Like
mhm.
I think of the Marvel quip, like that, like the way those people talk to each other. It's like they've kind of created their own little language and their own rhythm of dialogue that when going back to something like this and watching Richard, like getting the chance to watch Richard Dreyfuss just like sizzle and like walk around his apartment, shuffle his papers, like
We don't
he
have
had a
time for
Being
that
a
now.
he had a really interesting relationship with his glasses and with his hair, which was really cool. And like he was also Richard Dreyfuss, like was so delicate, like with his hands. He never like did anything really to like yeah, a lot of people wouldn't get they don't get that detail, which we'll get into later with Whiplash.
Yeah,
Um,
stark contrast.
a super stark contrast that like
That's interesting.
I suppose the word I'm looking for is delicate. This film is delicate. The
I like that.
emotions are delicate, and I think it was just a breath of fresh air to get like a movie that's like, you know what, we're just really trying to like we're trying to feel something here. We're trying to demonstrate our love of music, and and we're trying to, I don't know, inspire people, and I think that's
It's very real. It's very grounded. It's very human in a way that is refreshing. Honestly, like
totally.
there's almost like a weird disconnect with movies like that today that are trying to like subvert expectations, and I go out of my way to look for some of those things because I find them fascinating, and you know
If there's a
but it
purpose
is
behind it, sure, but I get what you're saying where it feels like people are just subverting expectations just for the sake of it. But no, like there has to be a real purpose behind changing the formula and changing it up. Like changing it up for the sake of changing it up does kind of come across as cynical and edgy. like, I'm gonna change the source material to fit the darker tone that I'm coming up with because I'm so smart, I'm such a genius. But there's something
That's
about a film that knows what it is,
that's
plain and
Zack
simple.
Snyder in a nutshell doing
Oh, 100%.
Superman and Batman.
It's Ryan Johnson for Star Wars, but he actually did a good job of doing that with Knives Out, which is weird. But back to what you said earlier,
I
Dylan.
enjoyed that movie. I saw that in
Yeah,
theaters with my
I liked it
family.
too. It
Which one?
knows what it is. It's a very
Knives
goofy,
Out.
strange,
Oh,
bizarre, like
it's
murder
alright. Yeah,
mystery, and it
that was
sticks
pretty
to
cool.
it. It wasn't like, okay, we're gonna take the Star Wars formula and do pointless, edgy things with it. Knives Out is its own thing, so that works better for that kind of story. And I just want to go off of what you said earlier, Dylan. I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, like camp is something that kind of needs to show up in movies more. I agree with that. I love camp. I respect camp. Mad Max Fury Road is one of my favorite films of all time, and that movie is about as campy and goofy as
Right.
it gets.
Yeah,
However,
that dials it up to 11. Right?
exactly.
I mean,
And
yeah, exactly.
my point though is I think a campy film needs to know that it's camp. And unfortunately, this film really didn't know that it was camp for me.
That's a good
I
point.
completely disagree
But
that it felt realistic because there was constant, just for the writing and the interactions and the performances, it was constantly taking me out of the experience. There's so many moments I'm just like, nobody talks like that. Like, nobody has an interaction like that. Like, it feels like
Mhm.
it's one of those movies where it feels like it was written by somebody that doesn't talk to people very much because nothing about
Mhm.
it felt natural to me. And I'm gonna be honest, like, I watched this film
Damn.
last night, like literally not even 24 hours ago. I barely remember anything about it. Like, it just was not connecting with me in any way.
It does whiz by.
I don't know if I agree with that because, like, I was watching it with my family, and the one thing we agreed on was it was just way too long. And yeah, I think it's way too long. I don't think it earns its runtime whatsoever. 30 minutes could have been cut, and I feel like I would have got it. I would have lost nothing.
Yeah, and
They're
see,
drawn out.
I can see why you would have that perspective, and I was thinking about it, and there was a little bit where I was watching it on mute. I will admit, um,
Interesting.
and but I knew what was happening because these movies, we were born in this era. This era like speaks to us at like a borderline genetic
Oh, I
level
agree.
at this point, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we definitely know like what's going to happen, and it definitely serves and fits in that particular mold of that particular movie. I'll give you that, absolutely.
But it doesn't
Um,
do anything interesting with it, which is the problem. Like, sure, you can have a simple narrative. I have no problem with that.
I mean, I don't
Just
agree
do
with that,
something
but
interesting with it. And I just don't
I
think
would
it did.
compare this. This would be kind of like reminds me a lot of like a kind of like a coming of age movie, but a subversion of that in a little bit,
Really?
a bit of a like in that usually what you see like like Coach Carter, where it's sort of like a there's
How do I
an
reach
initial
these kids? Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I see this as like the background character of every other coming of age movie getting a spotlight. Like here's the, crusty old teacher, who was different people it was a lot of things to different people, but who was never really appreciated. And
Yeah.
this is just his kind of, and like I see this being like the background character in a lot of other movies, and this is him finally getting kind of his own
And reminds me
movie.
why he should be a
Yeah,
background
I can
character.
see that. I
Oh,
just think
come on.
I would just want to quickly go back to what you were saying about camp, and I actually I have to I have to kind of bite back on that because
Please
Go for it.
I think you might
do
be
it.
misunderstanding camp a little bit there, because camp is a result of the unintentional. Uh,
Well,
it is as well as like
I
um,
agree with that.
if you read Susan Sontag's on camp, a lot of what she describes is the earnest attempt, where the camp lies in the valley of earnest attempt. I think I'm paraphrasing. You'd have to go back to the book, but
that's interesting.
it's the genuine attempt by someone to create something of note and almost failing so spectacularly that it's
Really?
yeah,
Huh.
that it's uh, it's enjoyable to pay attention to. So camp, I know for camp puts things in quotes. I think that's a Susan Sontag is like, it's not a lamp, it's a quote lamp. So for it to be campy, it needs to be a music teacher and it needs to be a symphony, but really it's, you know what I mean? So it kind of like takes those
Okay.
things to its emotional limit, which in and of itself is camp.
Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. I guess the term I'm looking for is goofy, like a more into goofiness, because that's something I've kind of tied into camp for years, and I think a
Right.
lot of people have gotten that description wrong too. That's an interesting point of view, but in that case, I'd
You know
argue
what?
a lot of
I
films these days are campy in that sense, where they try something new, but they fail like miserably at it.
I would actually argue a
I
lot of
don't think that. Yeah,
films.
I
Sorry,
think they
go ahead.
tried it. Sorry, no, I think they are trying to do it intentionally though. Like I think they're trying to be wink, wink, and nudge, nudge. We're being campy, but it's that self-awareness that kind of defeats it. It's like comparing The Room to Sharknado. Like The Room
Oh,
Exactly.
for
was
sure.
trying to be a dark, real drama and failed miserably, and in doing so becomes fucking
A cult
hilarious.
classic.
Fair
Where
enough.
Sharknado is
Is
intentionally trying to be ridiculous, and people there's fans of it and there's things, but it's just like,
it's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah, we know
Well,
we're shit and we're gonna
on
lean
the
into that.
other end of camp from the perspective of The Room, if you go on the other side of that, you have something like Antichrist by Lars von Trier. That's camp,
Ooh,
right? That is one of the campiest movies I've ever seen in my life. It's
Ooh.
awful,
but
it's
it
camp,
tries.
right?
Yeah, it absolutely
You know
tries. I
what?
get that.
And it's camp and it's hilarious in its attempt to be some high, which it ultimately ends up being high art, but its pursuit of becoming high art is where the art lies, which kind of goes back to the medium is the message. So
Mhm.
its delivery to you is the art of itself. So the way I watched this movie today was like I watched this like also watching Forrest Gump, and I'm also watching Shawshank, and I'm just watching that movie, right? But with
Fair
a
enough.
different paint job, and I'm really enjoying it.
That's interesting.
It's
Well, I did
it's
get some
definitely
good
a
laughs.
product of its
Yep.
era, which I think there's lots of benefits
Oh, yeah.
to, and I think it's only in retrospect or that we've had different kinds of movie movements since then that we can look at this as, okay, this is very like 90s sentimentality, but if you look at it as a thing of its time in the context of what was also out, this is high caliber art probably, and I mean Richard Dreyfuss, I almost said Linklater, was nominated at the time. So this was definitely on the pinnacle
Yeah, we
of its
know
time.
the
And
Oscars are high quality. They pick high quality
oh,
winners every time.
I
Oscar-winning Suicide Squad.
I was gonna mention. Oh, there's a lot of things I have going on. Just give me a sec. But
No worries.
no, I'm. It's funny you bring up Antichrist. I haven't seen that movie specifically, but we did review Nymphomaniac on this podcast before, and
Another
oh,
disturbingly, incredibly hilarious movie.
Oh, it's so funny.
I just love the fact that he decides to throw away 5 hours of character development in the last 30 seconds for a rape joke.
Yeah, just the
Jesus
worst thing you've ever
Christ.
seen
And let's
in the
open up
world.
with Ramstein as we have a serious scene of somebody finding a rape victim.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
fuck
no,
off.
he is
Oh my God.
he
And
is truly awful.
He is a tryhard. He made some great movies. Like Melancholy is unironically great. Beyond, Breaking the Waves is unironically great. I
I've
love
actually never seen
I
Melancholia.
half
I
of.
remember
Yeah, go on.
I remember so I saw Dancer in the Dark, which was his musical Björk, and I remember really liking it but being emotionally devastated by it when I first watched it, and then on the second viewing I was just a lot more privy to Lars von Trier's deliberate emotional manipulation of the audience, so I'm just like halfway I'm just like, oh fuck this, which we'll get into with Whiplash later.
Yes.
But
But anyway, just yeah, I'm just going. I'm not bearing the lead on that. Hey,
Hey, he did it.
Let's
I love
go.
the way.
That's
So,
my
so
favorite.
we need you on
I
here
do
for
I do
just for
just want
that.
to say this movie was like, made for TV garbage, but it was good garbage is the point I'm trying
Okay,
to make
that's
here. I
fair.
really enjoyed it for its,
This this is
uh,
a gold nugget in the dumpster left behind
you got it, of
in a
TV
Denny's,
movies. That's right. Put this
of
one
TV
right
movies.
next to,
This is the gold nugget you find in the dumpster, and I love it for that.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. It did get some good laughs out of it. I'll admit, I did laugh pretty hard. There's a romantic subplot that rivals The Godfather Part 3 in awkwardness. the romance
Yeah.
between Richard Dreyfuss and the 16-year-old girl. Okay, so what the movie tries to do is that it tries to insist that this is like a tough decision to make, that he should seriously consider running off of this 16-year-old girl to the middle of nowhere, somebody who's like a quarter of his age at this point. Like, the audience is never going to sympathize with that. The audience is never going to sympathize with
I hate
I
to
gotta
say
tell
it.
you
I
though,
think that
man.
is a moral dilemma for a lot of people.
Also, I hate to say it, but I can think of like probably a dozen songs about how she was only 16, if you know what I mean. That's what these dudes grew up on.
You do the
This,
scene in the
this
oh, sorry.
he's also using rock and roll in the movie, right? I mean, and that's not to say,
Yeah,
I'm not trying to excuse in any way, shape, or form. However, I am saying that it is again a product of its time. 1995, people were
different.
People were a lot more disgusting. Let's be honest.
and
Fair enough.
you're in 1995 looking at 1965.
That too.
Well, no,
Yeah.
not at this point in his life.
1965,
Not at this
yeah,
point.
it's
Oh, yeah, at this
We're
point,
in
it's more like the 70s,
2022 looking at a 1997 movie reflecting on the 60s. We have like three different optics here from three different
But
decades.
here's
Yeah,
the thing:
exactly.
that wasn't during the 60s, though. That was during the 80s, because
No,
that
you're
was
right.
one of the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
jumps.
It was more. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just so many moments in the movie like that were just awkward. And like, yeah, a lot of the dialogue was very clunky. Like, I think of like every time the principal shows up, she's just Mrs. Exposition. She just like literally the first scene is like, all right, you're teaching this class from 5 to 7 every week, but and you have to work weekends bi-weekly, Saturday and Sunday. It's like it's so awkwardly delivered. Like, I keep thinking there's so many ways you can give like exposition's much smoother way. And another example is when his wife was like, play the song that made me fall in love with you. I'm just like, that's a weird way of saying that. Why don't you say like play
That is
our
weird.
why don't you say like play our song, or play the song, the song. Like, there's so many different ways you can interpret that. And almost
well,
every
well,
line of dialogue
nice.
was like that. It's like you could
Play
have
the
written that
song
so
that
much
made me
better.
fall in love with you, April 19th, fucking 1954.
Play the song that made me realize you got that thick thing.
it played a song that we had our first child to.
That's right.
Play that
Denise.
song that we did one time at band camp when I stuck the you know the quote.
Play that funky music, white boy.
No, touch
Play it
me. uh God, but honestly, like, I'm trying to remember things that happened in the movie, and really all I can remember were just the bad cheesy bits and the ending
Oh,
where
I did tell you the one scene where they find out his son was deaf. Hysterical. No, that's my riff on
Oh.
people who are being edgy.
I
But
mean,
no, no. For real though, that was the scene that I think. Okay, this movie still has emotional teeth for me. Like, I was watching this, I'd seen it years and years ago before. I was thinking a lot of the same things. Like, okay, some of this exposition's a little clunky and it's a little hokey in that 90s way. But when they find out that their son is deaf, that still grabbed me. And
Yeah.
so I think that this film still has merit and is worth talking about.
There's certainly some, yeah, there's definitely some really nice moments in this movie that, yeah, I mean, you can't
It's
say.
it's a haunting bit of irony. I mean, it's the fact that his whole life is dedicated around music, and he has a son who is deaf that he feels he can't emotionally connect to, which he has to overcome. Which you could say is maybe a little cliche, but I think it works here, and I think it's a beautiful, morose piece of irony in a lifelong career of music, and I do think that is something that he overcomes. He learns how to have a relationship with his son without, or without him having the ability to hear music.
Yeah.
So,
It's an interesting look at parenting. Um,
that too.
you
Yeah.
having to, make a serious sacrifice to, be a good parent, and that juxtaposed to his life's mission, which is to create, his magnum opus. Um, that I think that touched me in a particular way. I thought that was really interesting. And
Yeah,
know.
I love his wife's speech where she's yelling that she's frustrated because she can't talk with her son. She can't tell her son that I love him
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
because
sad.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, come
and that's the other
on.
thing. Like I like the one guy was saying that I liked the one thing where he's like, talk to him as if he's normal. Like, don't belittle him because of the fact that he can't hear. But then he also says, he's gonna attempt to make
Yeah,
gestures and then don't communicate back. Okay, that's very backwards
yeah,
1970s thinking.
yeah, that was
And
accurate. In fairness.
which is unfortunately very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's
But
oh,
that's again, I mean, it's interesting that this movie, just based on when it was made, is unafraid to show stuff like that.
that's true.
oh
Whether
exactly.
it's a an awful product, a byproduct of its time, or it's a deliberate choice, it's still interesting. I mean,
It's
it's
interesting.
something. There's an
Yeah.
edge to it in some way that
Mhm.
I found enjoyable.
Yeah, it's interesting writing wise, like storyboard wise. This is a great idea, and maybe if it was fleshed out in a better movie, I would have connected with it more. But it has the same problem that the rest of the film has, where it just felt so rushed and sloppy, and I just didn't feel anything it was going for. I have no problem with the
Totally.
ideas
not a
behind it, but
fanian.
yeah, no, not a fan. And even in the scene, like when
Maybe you're
she's
just not a musician. I don't know.
I
no,
mean, hey, look,
I
No,
love
no, no.
it's all
music, man.
good. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
I love music, man. It's just, but even the scene where she is yelling at him, it's like, I can't understand him. I don't know what he wants. It's like, it's so on the nose and forced. Like, it's a great performance, but again, the dialogue is just,
It,
if there was
it,
just
it,
more
it
subtlety
feels like
to
a
it,
real moment to me though. Like I don't know.
I don't
For
know.
me, if it feels like, well, also I'm not a parent, you're not a parent, and maybe that's also another, you know. I'm just saying that that it's not something that maybe we personally just don't connect to because we haven't been in this kind of
But it just
situation.
felt like the movie was just beating it down my face. Like the characters weren't naturally arguing. They're just is the equivalent of like the Star Wars prequels where characters just say how they feel. That's kind of how it felt to me. Although much better acted, for sure. Like the
in
acting, I
Star
think
Wars.
is like
well, and
the
they have
one
to tell
highlight of the
30
movie. I'll
years
give
of
it that.
story very quickly too.
I know,
Yeah,
but it
there's
doesn't
a
feel
certain
quick.
amount of efficiency that they have to do, right? Like,
But there's other stories that handle that better. Like maybe that's another
I'm
Yeah,
reason
curious
too.
as
Is
to
that
what realistically argue means.
well, I guess my point is like when I argue, for example, like I'm not making it super like I make it clear that I'm mad, but I'm not making it super clear like what I'm arguing about, like lashing out and strong, basically, just like kind of putting off the real issue. I don't know, like I'm something about it just felt off to me. I guess is the best
I
way to
see.
put it. And
sure.
another reason might be just I've seen so many other movies that tackle this kind of structure better. So maybe if I saw this movie earlier in my life, I would have appreciated it a
Fair
lot
enough.
more. I'll give it that.
I think a lot of arguments in real life, people argue around the issue. They're not super direct or forthcoming. They
Exactly.
just sort of, it's like, I'm mad at you because you're not showing me affection. I'm gonna complain about you not doing the dishes, kind of thing,
Yeah, like Eyes
right?
Wide Shut when Nicole Kidman in that movie like brings up the fact that she screwed like another guy before they got married, but she's just trying to get a rise out of him. But she's not directly saying that she's trying to get a rise out of him. She's not directly saying that she's mad at him in
Sure.
any way.
But you also have to think, is the goal of the movie to be just a verbatim realistic depiction of reality, or is it trying to, you know, uh, tell a story in as efficient way as possible so that it connects and resonates with an audience?
That's what I'm saying.
But
It's a
it
movie
doesn't
ass
connect.
movie, and I
It's
really
it's it's
enjoy
a
a
very
movie ass movie once in a while. It
Yeah,
there
I
you go.
runs
can
its
too, just if it was entertaining, but it was just very dull for me.
cool. Well, hey,
Fair.
Something like
okay.
Avatar is really stupid, but at the very least, I can get some entertainment out of it, and it flies by despite the fact that's a longer movie.
What was that? So the entertainment value of something like Avatar versus something like this is action.
Well,
The
I
difference starts
guess okay.
being
Well,
action.
okay. Well, I guess a better way to put it is, something like Forrest Gump. Like I enjoyed that movie a lot more, despite the fact that it's arguably worse. Like it flies, it's paced a lot better. It feels more clear of what it's going for. The acting feels more convincing. Like
Hmm
it just feels poorly thought out in a lot of ways, and I wish I could flesh it out more. But like I said, I'm struggling to remember it. It's like I'm experiencing PTSD flashbacks
Sure.
of the movie as
And
I'm talking about it.
And and I'll say I'm biased because I grew up with this movie, so I've been very familiar with it, and I connected with it emotionally more when I was really young. And so I am looking back at it with that in mind, and then also finding new reasons to connect with it
Well, I
these
can
days.
only, when you watch a movie from 1995, like I remember vaguely what 1995 was like, and when I watch a movie like that, it takes me back, and I don't know,
That's
I
fair.
expected it to be that way. I expected it to
True.
be,
That's all right.
There's
I
a
didn't expect
certain
anything more.
amount of nostalgia there, a certain amount of
Mhm.
rose-tinted glasses element. But that aside, I still enjoy this movie.
And
We
I'm
got
glad
two
you
other
guys
movies to
did.
talk about tonight. So
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was worth talking about just because I think this is like the staple for how music education looks like in the U.S. or we're in
Very
Canada,
much
so
in
it's
the
slightly
U.S.
different.
This is a very
Yeah.
American ass
Oh,
music
100%. This is a very
music
American
movie.
type of movie.
That's
But
true.
I also want to shout out to my Mr. Holland, Mr. Nichols. He was my music teacher all throughout high school. He was very much kind of like the sixth or seventh Beatle. Very low key but very chill, like product of the 60s kind of dude. Had a mustache just like Richard Dreyfuss did in this. Um, I,
Hey,
but yeah, no, the minute I met him, I thought of Mr. Holland, and I felt like that was my Mr. Holland. So I want to shout out to him. He was a cool guy. I remember him asking me a question one time. I was really into like thrash metal, but I was also, playing band. I was playing trombone for the first 2 years, switched to bass guitar in the last 2 years, playing music in there. And he asked me a question: Why is metal never in major key? And it was just questions like off the cuff like that just made me think more expansively about music. Like I think my immediate answer to that was finding some song off of the Load album from Metallica, which did happen to be in a major key, but did make me think, yeah, how come these certain genres are set in this way? Like how come you can't experiment or try different kind of modal structures or you know different musical ideas in these genres. Like so, I like that he always kind of looked outside the box and gave me different ideas and ways of looking at music. So shout out to him. Also, Mr. Zarkovich. I was in his guitar class and he gave me
I
100%, even though I definitely slacked.
I feel like I've had teachers, music or not, who are like Mr. Holland. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
they don't have to be music teachers. Like, could be a history teacher that
Mhm.
really helped you
Yeah.
out, and you ended up learning a lot from their class. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Hmm.
feel in those ways, that's where I connected with it. Like, right off the hop was like, I could see those things in my own life very quickly, and then the cheese that I expected from the '90s ass movie was it slid off easier for me.
There
All
you
right.
go. I like that way of looking at it. I think the times when he was working with the one girl on her clarinet and she just wasn't like getting good at it, and he encouraged her to you know, try to look at it differently. Like, don't look at the music. Think about the sunset, which is, again, might sound really cheesy, but it works for her. It works to help her connect to the music on a more emotional level rather than technical. So I think
Yeah,
that
it's a
moment for
beautiful thing.
me,
Like, it's a
that is the
That's
heart of the movie
definitely
for me.
something that we try to encourage as music teachers is to take it off the page. You know,
And
yeah,
re-
if
it's
you
one of the
need the
most.
page, then use it. But like the music is in the air. There's a really whack line in Whiplash too. Like we'll get to, but yeah, like
Well, I think we're all so excited to shit on. I'm so excited to shit on
And I am
Whiplash.
so excited to
yeah.
defend it.
Oh
oh
my,
boy,
But you know what? I
Ian,
shat on this
Ian.
movie, so I deserve it wholeheartedly.
Oh
So,
yeah, oh yeah. We're gonna get
before
no,
there.
no,
Oh man, look. You know,
before
I
we
know
get to mine,
I know I kind of went back and forth with you on this, but I'm going to tear this movie a new ass.
oh,
good.
I am gonna give it some extra protection. Before we head on to final ratings, Devin and I
Extra
concocted
lube.
some quick questions that we'd like to ask you to about each film. And the first question is: does this film reflect your experience of learning music in school at all?
I will summarize that by saying it was funny. I was on the phone actually with Costa when I had the movie on
Oh,
at first, and when he first walks in the classroom and stands up at the podium and has them all play. That out of tune sound of a bunch of wind instruments and string instruments and everybody just like playing all at the same time, and that sound blasting,
Quintessential.
I got like an ASMR sensation, like the hair on the back of my neck stood up, because I was like, oh, that was like when people watch like old episodes of The Simpsons, like that's the same sort of, like, I remember sitting on the couch watching this. Sort of is very hit me right in the nostalgia. Like, very
You can
few
smell
movies.
the freshly waxed
Oh my
floors.
god, and the carpet, and
Oh
yeah,
God,
man.
the
Spit
carpet,
And
man.
like, and watching like the trumpet players just like freely empty their fucking spit valves all over the fucking floor, and you had to walk all
Oh
over it. That
fuck.
always grossed me out.
Man, that's exactly what we had at school. We just had this dank ass carpet that people always emptied their spit valves. I had a
That's what I'm
trombone, so
saying,
it was
man.
even worse. And
I did learn that it's actually condensation.
condensation, yes. So yeah, and what they would always keep saying. It's not actually your spit; it's condensation. So it's not as gross, but still,
It
it's
doesn't really.
condensation that
I don't
came
want
from
it on
your
my
mouth.
shoe.
Yeah. Number
Exactly.
2.
It's
Ha-
condensation that you're like still like
oh,
blowing
all
out.
right. All right. Number 2. Has the way music has been taught in school changed much since this film came out? Or
Yeah,
if not, well, how would
yeah.
you say it
I'll
has?
tell you right now. One of the first things I noticed was they had like multiple cellos. Those are like $6,000 instruments, and
Jeez.
unless you're a school with, I mean,
Oh my
I
God.
can't personally speak for the American educational system, but where Costa and I come from, I mean, good luck. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yo,
yeah.
that was the thing that peeved me so much. So I was getting really into music when I was in like grade 7, grade 8. I had to pick up trombone because that's what was available to me, and that gave me
Same.
enough. That gave me enough encouragement to pick up guitar. I'm like, oh, music is kind of easy. And then I want to pick up an instrument I actually want to play, so I picked up guitar around that time. But going into high school, I heard that the high school I was going to had strings, and I just really wanted to learn cello because that seemed like a cool ass instrument to me. But they got rid of the strings the year before I got there,
All right. And
and
number.
I
yeah,
was
they
so
sold them.
pissed.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
Oh my
definitely
God.
sold them
Oh
because
yeah.
they're very expensive, and it's like the first thing to go. Um,
Yeah.
if a school board needs to cut, if a school needs to cut, number one thing to go is the music program. You know,
Yeah.
second thing to go is what visual arts. But I mean, I was very lucky in that I had a really well funded music program when I went to high school. It was one guy. He was actually quite kind of a Whiplash type character, which I have some stories about this dude we'll get into later. But um, our music room was an old gymnasium, and we had the carpet, but he built a whole stage. Um, we had practice rooms, and we had the whole 9 yards. It was pretty, but it was one in a million. Every other rather music program that I saw was bunk. I mean, it smelled like piss.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
We had a fucking '60s shag carpet in the office connecting the two
Oh
music rooms that
God.
we had, and I loved that the fact that it was like an artifact from the '60s in there, even though it was dank as shit. Last I checked at that school, they turned that room, like renovated it, got rid of all the artifacts of the past, which, I mean, I'm glad they did it after I left. And they turned that into like an extra conference room or something. And then they turned the drama room into the music room because they don't have a drama thing anymore. So yeah, they're shifting things around and trying to salvage what they have, but I'm pretty sure they've never changed the heads on that drum kit. I guarantee you it has the exact same drum heads on it from when I was there.
That's insane. Number 3, and the question I'm most excited for. Do you guys know if they played the instruments properly in the movie? And if not, was there any way they could have shot it to make it more convincing?
Yeah, well, up top, the close-ups of the hands are like pretty dead on.
Okay.
Well, you
But
can tell when you can tell pretty. I think at least when maybe it's because we're musicians, but I can tell pretty quickly when when it's in the room and it's actually being played, and when it's being dubbed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was pretty
I'd-
obvious at parts, but it
yeah.
wasn't true.
But Ian, I want to save the rest of those questions when we get to the end. We'll just bring them up as we talked about. But let's. I
Yeah,
want
I'm
to cap
sorry.
off. I want to cap off Mr. Holland's Opus. Let's give it like a rating out of 10, and we'll get to Stool of Rock.
All right, you guys go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 8 to 9. I really enjoyed it.
It's gonna get a 7 for me. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
All right,
I'll give it a 7.5.
and I've given this one, given this one a 4 out of 10. I'm sorry, guys.
Hey,
Wow,
Uh,
not even a 5.
Maybe even lower. I could not get this movie. I like the performances. I think like that's the only. I'm trying to
You
figure.
couldn't even give it a 6.9.
No,
Incredible.
don't worry. There's a movie on this list that is very deserving of that score. Not to spoil
Okay.
anything major, but oh, 1 second. I'm just gonna type in those scores real quick. Sorry, guys. So 7.5 for you,
you can
Devin.
edit this later.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can fix it in post, which I never do. Anyways, next movie would the rock teacher in the group like to introduce School of Rock. Spoilers.
The rock teacher, is that me?
The guitar teacher, sorry.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, with my
Yo,
guitar.
you're a
Well,
rock
you-
teacher.
Yeah. With your guitar.
That means I'm gonna have to pick it. Oh shit! I wasn't prepared. It's
No
not even in
worries.
my hand.
It's all right.
That's
We're doing it live. Doing it
Or
live.
you
bud.
know what, Dylan? I think you spoke most passionately about Whiplash.
I did.
I think. Do you want to introduce that one later? And
Sure.
then Toast,
I'll
do you want to
introduce.
take on Stool of Rock?
All right.
There's
let's do it.
no way you can stop. You're still have a ride.
There it is.
Hey,
Fucking A.
he did it.
Let's
What's
go.
it about?
Yeah, I've had a drum kit connected this whole fucking time.
Hell yeah!
Yep.
It's coming handy.
All right. What's the plot about?
Yeah, you got to describe the plot, Costa.
Oh,
Pitch us on the movie.
There, I'll get you started. Stool of Rock is a 2003 film directed by Richard Linklater, and that's your cue, Costa.
friggin' awesome.
There you go.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, he he impersonates somebody who's typically a substitute teacher, and that teacher for this school happened to be a music teacher, and he happens to be a musician who just got kicked out of a band. So it's perfect timing for him. He goes and takes the roommate's job without his knowing, and he ends up running a class of students who are pretty by the book. Oh, sorry, no, he's just teaching their class, and then he realizes that they have music class, and he like sneaks by and ends up listening to them in music class. He's like, "Oh, so you guys do music, huh?" And then yeah, he makes them his band.
Perfect summation. Oh, and it's
Nice.
Jack
In order
Black,
to
by the
win
way.
Battle of the Bands,
Right.
So we can win $10,000, I think, for rent money.
Yep.
Is it
Yeah.
rent money?
Rent money, because Sarah Silverman was threatening to kick him
Sarah
out.
Silverman is threatening to kick him out because
Who-
he embodies the stereotypical like lazy fat bum ass
Oh, yeah.
musician, which I know a bunch of those dudes for
Oh,
sure.
you know what? I have to give credit to the set design in this, because those looked like real lived-in musician, tapes.
The
You know what I mean?
amount of
That wasn't
fucking
just his apartment?
apartments that I've been in, I could smell that thing. It's like a mix
Oh
of
my
like
God.
old bong water and like Gatorade and fucking like burnt out cigarettes.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
man, no, it's
Bit
My,
of
th-
marijuana.
those bed sheets, those like bed sheets of like the sunset with those like 70s like brown, orange, cream colored. Like my grandparents had those exact same bed sheets, and that looked like something that he inherited after they died. You know what I mean? That's man. Just yeah, it looks so lived in and authentic to
Yeah.
how a musician's lifestyle is, for better or for worse. But also
I
so
would
this
say
came
for
out.
better. Obviously for better. I mean,
This
musicians live kind of the coolest lifestyle, quite frankly. I mean, there's really no better, cooler person on earth than like the guy who, like starts an acoustic trio where he does Jason Mraz covers and like at like a local restaurant, and like his girlfriend breaks up with him and like
Oh
this
hell
kid
yeah.
paid $100 a night, and yeah,
That's the
no,
pinnacle of living
these
right
guys,
there.
no, this is the best. This is actually the secret key to Valhalla.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's funny. We did a Viking episode not that long
Oh
ago.
yeah, you missed that.
With that was the last episode we did, wasn't it? Or two episodes?
No,
Anyway,
that was 2 episodes ago. Anyways,
Anyway.
Was it for Robert Eggers?
it was
movie?
for the
was.
Northman and Pathfinder
I
and
haven't seen
Valhalla
it. Is it
Rising.
good?
It's much better on a
I liked
second
it.
watch. I liked it on a
Nice.
second
I'm
watch.
gonna
I
check it
really
out.
didn't on it first. Recommend a couple viewings for that
Well,
one.
that's a usual theme for you, isn't it, Ian?
What? I'm allowed to change my opinion. I'm a grown boy who doesn't need any. I don't know where I'm
You're
going
right.
with this. I had a long day at work. Anyways,
Anyway,
about the apartment, real quick. There's an interesting bit of trivia. Do you guys know how the idea of this film came about? I'll tell you how the
I
idea of
know.
this film came about. The roommate is played by the screenwriter of the movie, and the screenwriter of the movie lived across from Jack Black. And he'd always talk about like how Jack Black would like come out in the middle of the night in his underwear, like shredding a guitar, singing to Led Zeppelin and all these different bands. And he thought, wow, what if this fucking weirdo taught at a school? And that's how the idea of School of Rock came together. Boom.
That's amazing. I fucking
Yeah.
love that.
that's the most organic rights. Well, not rights to riches, but the seed for a story to come up. And I like the fact that
it's one of the most like beautiful synergies between a filmmaker and an actor, where like they take the actor and build the movie around that person. It's one of the best examples I've ever seen. It's like no other person on earth could have done this.
No, there's nobody else you could have casted for a role, and he steals every
there is
scene.
no substitute for Jack Black.
Like it
Yeah,
says on the
and speaking
poster.
of substitute, shout out to the soundtrack. Blew a lot of kids' minds. I remember in school, like, you know, I picked up the guitar when I was 11, which would have been 2003,
Which is the year this came out.
which is the just about the year this came out. Yeah, so
Wow.
so I was yeah, so I like this set me on a path. Like a lot of people was like, holy shit, look at this, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
I want to rip like the Zach kid. Like, you know, I remember the kid's name. It was very inspiring to see that. I watched it like 50 times, you know.
Oh hell yeah! I was 8 when this came out, and this absolutely made it look like being a rock and roll person was the coolest thing ever. I didn't
Yeah,
actually pick up the instrument until years later, but this absolutely influenced that decision. Like I
yeah.
got
This among
into
a few other things at the time. I remember, you know, I can't remember exactly when this movie came out, but and I don't think I saw it until it came out on DVD like much later, because back then, like, what was it, like 7 months or something in between
something like that. Yeah, I
in
remember
between being in,
distinctly like renting this out at some shitty variety store, and you have like a DVD in like a tiny little clear case. It wasn't even
yeah,
like a proper
yeah,
DVD
yeah,
case, but
exactly. So we rented this, and by the time I actually managed to like put it on our TV and watch it, like I had advanced quite a bit at guitar, just kind of based on like I'm a kind of compulsive and a little obsessive at practicing. So by this point, I was already playing Led Zeppelin and playing like I had already like it just dove into as much of that classic rock as I could. So I'd already listened to like I had heard Jimi Hendrix, and so by the time this came around, this was very like reassuring that I was like, okay, cool. This isn't just like my dad's music. Like this is actually like great music. You know what I mean?
hell yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
And
it
if I'm not
definitely encourages
mistaken,
you on that journey. Go ahead.
if I'm not mistaken, like Jack Black got the rights to the Immigrant song, and like he begged Led Zeppelin because they don't do it. They at that point I'm pretty sure they did not license tunes.
That's true.
Now they've done it since, but I remember that being a big deal. He like filmed a video of them or something like that, of the whole cast or something, like playing, or I can't even remember what it was, but like he begged them and they said yes. That was the bottom line.
Yeah. And
One of
And
my other favorite
it was
additions-
absolutely worth it because it was my favorite use of that song. Also, the way
Of
they
Jack
used
Black's eyebrows.
yeah, Jack Black's eyebrows, and also every time I think of Back in Black, I always think of like the roll call scene. Like it just ties to that scene so perfectly.
Turkey sub.
Yes.
So yeah. Now it's time for recess, and yeah, like, he's the best part about the movie. He's never been. He's rarely ever been funnier in any of our movies. I'd argue he's a little funnier in Tropic Thunder, but yeah, it's clear he was allowed to improv. Apparently, he improvised the nicknames for the kids. Apparently, he came up with that like
I
song on
believe
the
it.
spot. The scene where he comes up with the song on the spot, he literally came up with that
I
song on the
believe the
spot
shit out of
because
that.
the kid went off script to be like, "Oh yeah, what's your song? Let's hear it." And it's like, "All right, let's dance." And like it's very cute and very wholesome. I love how the kids actually played the instruments, which honestly blew my
Yes,
mind
they do.
because I
And
Yes,
didn't
they
watch
that
it as a
do.
kid.
it's that seed of authenticity where I could actually see what they're playing and that is accurate. I'm like, okay, I can if I watch this and if I pick one up, I can figure this out. And
When
that
that
was the
all
whole
culminated at the end, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, seeing those kids like play those instruments for real and make that
Or for the
happen.
first time, they're like forming a band in the classroom, and okay, G, okay, but keep it going, G, 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 G.
G,
Okay, now give,
another
okay,
G.
now give me like a jing, 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 jing. No, hang on, give me on
Yeah,
the four
oh
time.
yeah.
Ba-dum, dum, ba-dum, dum, ba-dum.
yeah, yeah. So sick.
Can we just permanently hire you to do drumming for every episode?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what
Yeah,
that's what I do.
Freeze
Oh yeah.
first days.
right.
Oh, here we go.
You just take that G. Are you gonna get TOS'd if we do this though?
Nope. Technically not,
Uh,
because all you're doing is just playing the basic notes. Like you're not really playing the song.
Okay, we won't play the song.
Yeah, just do.
But like,
keep
yeah, I remember when I was a kid. Like, yeah, you like you learn G, and now you're making music. Right?
I know.
No,
There's a great feeling to it.
this is also so one of the main reasons I got into filmmaking or part of it and got into music as well. I would watch like live performance videos of musicians playing, like Rush, for example, and I would try to just watch and learn. Monkey see, monkey do. This was
Yeah.
what got me interested in, and it would absolutely piss me off, or I was just so peeved whenever I saw a movie where they fake playing it, or I couldn't see what they were doing, and it made me just want to like move the camera to where I could see what they're actually playing, and it actually matches, and
Totally.
and this
I
is
don't harbor the same like I understand why because
Mhm.
it's fucking hard to play
It's
music.
well,
Oh, for
it's
sure.
hard to play music, and it's hard to film things, and it's hard
Yeah.
to record something in real time and make it
Yes.
match the visual and
Especially
make
with
them both
kids.
look and sound good. But
I,
to me, that's a noble thing to try to pull off because this is I don't know. I guess it's just an OCD thing for me, but I like to trust what I'm seeing and hearing, and I
Well,
like
it's
to be
kind of
able to learn
it's
from it.
it's funny. Like in reaction to School of Rock, I was like, oh, I want concerts on DVD now. That's what I
Yeah,
want
I
to
need
spend
more of
time
this.
watching.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
need more of this stuff, right?
for
So
sure.
so in a big way, and the Black Keys were on this soundtrack as well. Like there was some stuff that was pretty fresh at the time.
Mhm.
I actually dug into their album Rubber Factory as a result of this album, which was like one of the signifiers that people thought I was cool because like at the time it was like people nobody knew who that band was, so I was like because of School of Rock, I was like going to school being like, yo, check out this band, and like playing these like just these real basic sort of rock and roll riffs. But like I would go to school with my guitar, and all of a sudden I was like the sickest kid in school. Everyone thought I was cool for like the first time, and it felt like you had superpowers. And it was like,
Oh man.
it wasn't because of this movie, but this movie certainly like was inspiring, because
oh yeah.
again, I had heard Zeppelin. I'd been listening to this stuff at this point. It was just like a real confirmation
Oh yeah.
to keep going and keep learning music.
Where me, I started learning music in the Guitar Hero, phase in
Yeah.
that time period.
Yep,
But
yep.
Oh
I
boy.
was proud that I picked up the real instrument before, like, Guitar Hero got really popular. I guess it was the third one that was coming out. I didn't hear about it before then, but I was I had a little bit of pride that I was learning the real thing instead of just playing the game.
Yeah.
Fun
And
fact though, that the in the Guitar Hero 3, like that, I mean not fun fact, but like what I'm playing right now, It's basically the same thing as the Guitar Hero 3. That drum set, that electronic drum
Oh,
set.
like Guitar
Yeah,
Hero
it was
Two.
set.
That was how I learned the basic rock beat was from Rock Band actually.
Yep, I believe it because it's like it is set up in a weird way, like with the
Yeah.
yeah, but like the same exact technology is fueling this right here, and I could practice on this just about as easily as I could practice on an acoustic.
Yeah,
drum.
like the MIDI on the electronic drum kit is exactly what they use for Rock Band. So it's not verbatim, but it's the same
close.
tech at its core. But what what was weird? I remember going to this music store called John Ballone's, and I absolutely loved that place. They're closed now, unfortunately.
Hey, it's John Ballone's. Come get your pawn shop materials. Hey,
But that
Oh,
was
it's
that
John
was the
Ballone's.
first.
Look, you need somebody whacked. You need somebody
somebody
whacked
whacked
off. You gotta call my cousin for that.
Oh man. I don't think he had any ties to the mafia, but he was a cool, like John Lennon type of dude. And they had a drum room, most importantly, where I
Oh,
could
you need
actually.
somebody whacked off, bruv.
I love this.
Stop.
But
Yeah, just 5 minutes of this, please.
I don't know. I remember going in though and saying that I learned the basic rock beat from Rock Band, and the guys would kind of scoff and laugh at me for it, and I'm like, but same. It just gotta move my
Oh,
hand
yeah.
over
But
No,
here,
it's
and it
expert
works.
is
same
hard.
rudiments, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it's like this.
Well,
like I mean, that's
and
the same.
I'm not saying that bit of discouragement was what projected me like in Whiplash, but but it did make me want to prove them wrong that hey, I can learn the drums. It doesn't matter that I learned the basic beat from Rock Band. I can still learn the real thing. And they had a drum room where you could try out different cymbals, and that was the first place I was able to actually get my hands on actual real drums. And
Well, and Devin, now you have, you know, in our lessons, you show me, you're like, oh yeah, check out these new symbols I bought. I'm like, damn, dude, like you got nicer symbols than I do.
oh, thank you. I'm trying to
No,
get
you
the
just got a
best things
diverse set. You got, it's
Well,
like,
I
I love it.
basically like it's like all the Sabians and Zildjians are like $300-$400. They're pretty pricey. I know they sound good, but Bosphorus and Saluda they got some slightly cheaper stuff, and I want to try just every other cymbal brand and just see how they go.
Yeah,
That's also because they're less money.
yeah,
But
maybe not as expensive because I do have like a pretty expensive set of symbols, but
oh
I use
yeah,
them.
I mean
It's like it's a crash cymbal, a pair of hi hats, and a ride cymbal. That's what I bring to
and
the gig.
what are they all minal, or at least the hats are minal, right?
My hats are Mino, yeah, those were 700, but I got them for 350.
Nice.
Um,
They're nice though.
I
Like those
I
are some nice
oh they have
symbols.
a yeah they're gorgeous.
I could nerd out about this all day, but
Eh,
yeah.
Keep
But
going.
needless to say, I have been on a trajectory trying out symbols. Well, we'll talk about Whiplash, but it was for better or for worse, it was kind of reassuring to see that they had Bosphorus symbols in Whiplash because I didn't realize that before when I first
yeah
saw it.
yeah
But I have like the ride symbol version of the crash
of the
that he
crash
has.
yeah.
Like he has the antique crash with that little dry ring in the middle. I've got the ride symbol version of that.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
Anyway,
gorgeous.
we're jumping ahead. We're talking about School of
Oh,
Rock here.
yeah. Come on, let's get
This
back
movie
to
is
class.
based. That's my one word review.
It's just red pilled. That's
No. Honestly, this movie holds up for me. Like it is definitely made for kids, but it's from Richard Linklater, and I think there was a great little video essay from this one guy. I forget his name
Karsten
off the top,
Lundqvist.
but yeah, and he talked about the scene when he's initiating everybody into the band and how that scene perfectly sets a trajectory for the rest of the movie where he's trying to encourage these kids to play for the first time. And we were riffing on that earlier, but it's his kind of enthusiasm and encouragement and kind of talking to each kid on an individual basis to, to try to
Accommodating
teach in a
each
way.
one for what they need. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Exactly.
resourcefulness required
Jack
to be a
Black
musician.
in this
Yeah.
movie is a much better
Yeah.
teacher than Mr. Holland. I was just thinking that the entire time. I was like, this guy's so much better of a teacher. I want this
Yeah.
guy as my teacher. This
But
Jack
they
Black in
both
this
started
movie.
as poor teachers, as
That's
like
true.
uninspiring and you know.
They were very reluctant to take their job, and they only took it because they needed the money, kind of thing.
And it's very
Absolutely.
interesting to me that, look, I mean, this is a very diverse group of kids who all,
Yeah,
obviously come at
that
it
was
with
really
different
cool.
things, and you can infer certain things about their past just based on what they tell you about themselves. The one girl in particular who thinks she's too fat to be a
Yeah,
singer.
that was one of
Like
the
that's
cutest scenes in the movie.
Yeah,
like
which
that
is a
one.
really sweet thing when I think back, because I remember
I like food. Is
Jack
that a
Black
crime?
also did a movie called Shallow Hal, and that was a pretty disgusting movie. If you guys recall that,
I haven't
like,
seen it.
so
Well,
it's
the
yeah.
point of it was that
I know the point isn't that the beauty is but like not the point of what I'm saying is not to indict Jack Black, but the point is that around
Jason
that
Alexander
time,
had a tail.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But the point is around that time there was a lot of like there was a lot less care put into that sort of you know but that's Linklater. He makes those sorts of choices, and I thought it was really nice to see, like, you know
Mhm.
no one, like, there were gay jokes, but they weren't like gay jokes.
Yeah, it wasn't
The
at the
ones-
expense of gay
Kid was a
people.
little flamboyant. Like
Yeah.
it didn't really bring up the
No, but
sexuality
he
at all.
was
It's
he
just
was
his.
fabulous. That kid.
Oh,
He
exactly.
was like he was he
He was doing his own thing.
you know
Like
It's
yeah,
it's
glam.
the
It's
fact
glitter
that
rock, and it's fabulous.
yeah,
exactly.
like
He was
that's
like
Go
he
on.
was
Tacky
giving
and I hate
RuPaul.
yeah, exactly. Like it's his quirkiness that's the joke. It's not the fact that he's gay that's the joke. I think is a
No,
key
it's the
difference.
fact that he's like naturally gifted.
Yeah,
He's brilliant,
that's a good way to put it.
and he's assertive, and he's confident, and that his sexuality and you know his just personality is
Incidental.
it's incidental and plays backseat, which I love. I love that. I love
Oh
to
yeah.
see it.
I also love when he connects with the one girl who was gonna sing for him, but she felt discouraged because he's fat, and he says, "I'm fat, and look at me, I'm chubby and I'm sexy."
Yeah, I like
And
food. Is that
Chubby
correct?
and sexy.
Right,
and yeah,
and he speaks to these kids like with respect. Like
Like adults.
he says the word sexy to a kid, but it's very clear what he's trying to get at. Like it's not that I'm chubby, but I'm also beautiful, and it's okay to say things like that, and it's not ham-fisted. It's not
It's very genuine.
people.
I,
It
I
did,
also
it did
love
strike me
how
as like creepy.
yeah, no, when they go to that audition for like the Battle of the Bands and they kind of get rejected. I liked when Freddie Jones kind of goes off with that other band and then he gets mad at him for I think it's implied that maybe they were smoking weed. Like
Yeah,
it's not
that's what I
shown,
thought. Yeah.
but I think that's the implication.
That's
I
the
mean,
joke.
they're just sitting around playing cards and smoking, but
He was
I,
definitely got him
Yeah.
high for sure.
There's a lot
They're
of
just
jokes in this
chilling.
movie
Which, by the way,
you could not get
rules.
away
If I'm
with.
if I'm Freddie, that's the best day of my life.
Oh yeah, for
oh
sure.
fuck yeah,
But
we're just chilling.
yeah, there's a lot of jokes in this movie you could not get away with today. Like my
You
favorite
veer off.
example.
I'm sending
of
you
that.
home to your parents. I'm sending a note to your parents, which completely undoes his whole.
Yeah.
I
thing.
actually, you know what? I gotta tell you, I think you could absolutely make this movie today.
There's some jokes that for a kids movie you probably couldn't get away with, like it's like these kids really touched me, and I'd like to touch them. That was just
I felt like I
disgusting.
touched them.
That was
Oh, that
that's a misunderstanding joke. It's very obvious what that
But
joke is. It's
I
someone
don't. The fact that
who's
you're implying incest would be enough for Hollywood to be like, we don't want to show that to kids these days.
It's not implying incest; it's implying pedophilia.
Oh,
but that's
even better.
fine line. But no,
Even
you
better.
could make this film today. It wouldn't be as good, but you could
Exactly.
make it. They do have a show on Nickelodeon that I haven't watched, and it's not made for people in our
Does
demographic
it
anyway.
also
well,
star
sure.
Charlie?
If
Oh,
they were to
Jesus.
make today's version of this, it would be. I don't even know what it would be, but it wouldn't be.
It'd
It
be
wouldn't
very
have
sanitized.
anywhere near
Watered
the
down and a
charm.
little more friendly. Like this is wholesome with just enough edginess to make it cool.
Exactly.
Well,
You
the
know, and
edginess isn't necessarily it, but what I'm talking, like, if they were to make this today, like, the school would be like some private school, and they're like trying to get like a
Isn't it private?
contract with a particular brand. Like, they're trying to get a contract with Columbia, and like the actual president of Columbia shows up and like, throws a thumbs up at the screen while like the Pepsi logo like shows up behind him
Yeah.
with fireworks, and then they have to do a green screen and fight a purple laser somehow, like a School of
they
Rock
fight a
purple laser
giant.
guy.
Yeah.
it'd be some sanitized corporate BS thing. I
Yeah, it would
highly
also be a
which,
lot of
which
nostalgia bait.
fuck that. But like, what I just mean, as far as the actual subject matter goes, I mean, this, the jokes are jokes. Like, jokes are incidental as far as I'm concerned. It's really the skeletal framework of a movie like this is, I mean, really it could be anything. It could be soccer, it could be knitting, it doesn't have to be rock and roll, but the idea of, living your true authentic self, through some discipline, or through community, or through unification or solidarity with your peers, through something like music, is, I mean, that's, one of the most important things I think you could teach kids, and that's
100%.
it's something that I definitely try to make sure I get across when I teach somebody, is like, look, we are learning how to do something well, but the most important thing is that you're learning something that you're going to be able to do from now until the day you die, that brings you joy, so that if you're
Having
ever
fun.
not feeling good, you can pick this thing up and play it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You can watch it in any mood. This kind of movie.
I couldn't have said that more beautifully, and I think that is really the awesome resolve of this in the end, is when he turns his apartment into a after school program to teach kids
Best
music, and
after
I
credits ever.
absolutely love
Perfect
that.
movie, perfect politics, love it. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
School of
Nice.
Rock
I
slap.
also
Oh,
I
yeah,
also
10.
love how Ned picks up the guitar too, and he teaches all those kids the C chord, and they're not even close.
They're
Like,
Not
But
even
he's
close,
still
but
like,
he's like,
Isn't it like
but he's like,
preschool?
let's go.
yeah, let's keep going.
It's it's like, yeah, your fingering's basically right. It's not even close. But I love the fact that they didn't like bother to actually show them how to play a C chord for that shot. Like, I was going back and forth. Like, would have been better if they actually showed them how to play a C chord, or is it funnier because it isn't?
well,
I don't
it
think I'd be
fits.
talking about it
Oh,
if
way
it
funnier
was.
because they didn't.
Yeah,
It's
I
way
agree
better
with
that
100%.
they have no idea, because again, it goes back to, if I recall correctly, there's a B plot with Joan Cusack in a private school, or something, where she
Oh yeah,
leaves.
well, yeah, it's like the Joan Cusack. She's the principal. She's kind of stuck up, but she has a wild side too that he tries to
Yeah.
cater to because she loves Stevie Nicks and gets her a little bit drunk.
Oh yeah.
But no, I like that they humanized her character. She could have just been like a one-dimensional antagonist. Arguably, Sarah Silverman is kind of that in this, and she's
Very
actually really cool in
arguably.
real life. But
Yeah,
Joan,
she
but
does
I like.
play. She does just kind of like play a bitch, but I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of
sometimes
forced.
sometimes a bitch just serves a plot
She
purpose.
does it really
and
well.
that's what it is.
I don't.
She's very
Oh yeah.
good.
So we mentioned Avatar earlier, which is entertaining because, like how Avatar is a lot less interesting when you aren't with the Navi on Pandora, this movie is a lot less interesting when it isn't the kids and Jack Black in the classroom. Like, I think this movie is kind of awful when it's outside the classroom.
I disagree
honestly.
with that wholeheartedly.
I
I'm just gonna say
don't
that.
like the. It's nowhere near as funny or as entertaining the other scenes. Jack Black isn't
boo.
even as funny because he clearly couldn't improvise as much, and I don't know, like a lot of the adult acting wasn't great, and it just wasn't that interesting to me when it was outside the
But
classroom. When it's in the classroom, it's great. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of hurt there. But every time I was outside the classroom, it's like, oh, well, the fun is just gone, and I'm reminded I'm watching a dumb kids movie. But I didn't feel like that whenever we were in the classroom.
You
doing
remember the
lessons.
fucking band he's in? Remember those dudes?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No
Yeah.
vacancy.
Yo,
boy.
Costa, yo,
No.
real quick. Like how many
Real
dudes?
quick?
How many motherfuckers do we know like that? I know so.
Wearing just the sleeve, the leather sleeve.
This
Come
is
on.
Spider. He's replacing you. What's up, man?
What's up, man? Yeah, he's cool with him too. It's like no hard feelings. Yeah,
I love that he starts hitting on Joan Cusack at the end of the movie too.
and she's
That
oblivious
rules.
to it.
Yeah.
Like that
Ah.
rules that is so perfect, because he's like, he just doesn't give a fuck.
That's
like,
hot. Oh, are you warm?
This is hot.
Yeah, she's just
Yeah,
not
he
into
fucking
it.
doesn't
love that.
care. He just like whoever and whatever is in front of him, he'll try to fuck it. It's
Yeah, that's another joke. Like you probably couldn't get away.
It's almost
with in
like
kids'
he's
these
attracted
days.
to the exact opposite of what he is. It's like this really stuck up, like wearing turtleneck kind of T-shirt he's gonna hit on.
Oh, he
but
just needs to put on
it's a
some
mom
Stevie Nicks.
figure.
No, I love that.
I think it's supposed to be a mom figure. It's supposed to be like he needs a mommy.
Sure. Oh, probably.
He needs
Oh,
a mommy
I,
GF.
I am so glad Steven isn't on here. Oh man.
Oh, I'm so glad he's gonna listen to this episode and Kermit face us in the
Actually,
comment
no.
section.
I wish he was here. I can just hear him bitching right now about attacking his mommy kink. But
No, he
Yeah,
probably
my
not.
God.
he needs a mommy because he's got mommy issues because he's a little baby boy.
Hey!
That's why that dude in Visiting Day is about. I'm psychoanalyzing it, but I mean that's
No, you're probably onto something there. Nothing against him, Steven, we love you, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we love you, buddy.
get that
We all
checked.
have our kinks. We all have our
Yeah.
kinks. It's all good. Anyways, moving on.
But anyway, I love this movie. I'm
Let's rate it.
not abashed to say so. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Nice.
Fuck, I'm gonna give it a 9.
Yo, 12.
There you go.
I'm going to give it a 10, and I will briefly explain why I give it a 10.
You know what? I'm
I would
throwing
give it
12
Bullet,
into the
bullet
rating.
points, please.
I'm gonna give you guys the most like bulletproof reason as to why School of Rock is a 10, and I'll tell you why.
Shoot,
let's do it.
It wraps up in such a perfect bow. What is
That's
Costa? Remind me the first note he teaches that class.
G, 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 G,
What
G,
key
G,
is
G,
the
G.
last song that they write
G.
in?
Hey,
Hey,
Nice
it
touch
all
of music.
loops around. Right. It
Yeah,
all
that song.
loops back in a beautiful circle, and they write a song in the key of G. Zach rips a guitar solo, gets over his shyness. Everyone overcomes. Everyone triumphs over whatever personal traumas of growing up. And in
the
a way,
integration
sort
of the shadow, his loser self, is through becoming, challenging that he integrates his shadow self to his light self. There's some Jungian thing there probably.
Baby loves head rub.
Baby
Yeah.
loves head rubs, and yeah, the movie's a 10. So let's get it.
Nice.
Fuck yeah.
Well,
Fuck yeah.
I'm conflicted because I absolutely love the stuff of the kids. Even when like the kid actors weren't great, it doesn't bug me like it does in our movies. It's kind of more like
Just
a
give it a number and
"Aw."
move on.
All right, 6.9 out of 10. That's my rating.
Hey,
6.9.
4.20.
Hey.
Nice.
That's what your rating for Mr. Holland's Opus should have been. 4.2.
You know what? That's a 4.2.
No, 4.19. Got a minute.
4.2 out of 10 for Mr. Holland and 6.9 out of School of Rock. I had fun with it. I don't think it's the best film ever, but it's not trying to be, and I'm okay with that. I had a blast. Jack Black, man, please, I need you in more comedies. The world needs you right now. Singing in Psychonauts 2 was just a
All right.
taste. Anyways,
Well, now for
last but
something
not least.
completely different.
Oh, for something
At the
completely
risk of getting some head trauma, Dylan, would you love to introduce Whiplash?
Hey.
Yes, I would. Whiplash is a fucking terrible movie
Oh,
made
come
by some
on.
guy. Made by
Damien
some
Chazelle.
dickhead. Damien
Play-
Chazelle. No, made by Damien Chazelle. Look, the movie is it takes something beautiful like music, something really cool like jazz, something that was invented as a music to overcome, something as a unifier, and it turns it into a sport, and it turns it into a contest of bronze, silver, and gold, and that's sus as fuck. And this movie blows. So there you go. I think it was, what was it, 2017?
2014.
2014.
2014. Yeah,
So-
2014.
Ugh.
I remember. So I remember this came out when I was in college, and when I was in college, I was getting into like filmmaking, and I remember this one guy I was a colleague with. I would have said buddy at the time, but I'm gonna say colleague retroactively. And he had such a hard-on for this film when it came out. He wasn't a musician, but he was an ambitious little fucker. And he saw this as like, I don't know, some aspirational thing. Like I think he related to the character in different ways where he doesn't really relate to his family, but he has these ambitions and oh, you can't understand what I'm trying to do. So I'm gonna get into an abusive relationship with this guy who wants nothing but the worst for me. But he's gonna make it sound like that he just wants the best for me. And watching this movie now with that kind of, I don't know. I guess I'm paralleling it a little bit to real life, but with having reflected on it since watching it the first time, I just see this as a purely abusive relationship between Fletcher and this kid. He's almost like this specter, this ghost of the idea of perfection, which is something that's very self-destructive. I think if you're trying to play music and if you're trying to get actually good, you don't want to be perfect. You just want to
You want to be the
be
best.
determined and well, you want to be determined and you want to do well, but you also want to have fun. It's about having fun to an extent, and that's where I think School of Rock gets it right,
Definitely
and that's
about
where I think
having fun.
Whiplash turns it into this like vicious contest for
But
no
that's
reason.
the point.
Well,
I don't think it does it for no reason.
No, I think, yeah, so I really had a lot to reflect on this, and this really doesn't correlate with how musicians look at music. Like Fletcher is the complete total antichrist compared to my mentors in music growing up that I really took a lot from. Like Mr. Nichols is the complete opposite of this. Mr. Holland is the complete opposite of this, um, which I think is interesting. And this guy wouldn't be, anywhere or shouldn't be anywhere in any kind of music conservatory, I
Oh,
think.
he would be
'Cause
fired pretty
I've
fast.
heard that's interesting. I've heard people in music school, especially like Central High School around where I live, that said like some people said like yeah, it's incredibly inaccurate. This guy would be fired on the spot. But I've also heard people say this guy was like just like my teacher. Like they actually basically experienced like PTSD
I'm
while
more or
watching
less.
this movie. It's all about like personal experience, and I don't think this film is trying to show that the relationship is a good thing. I don't think this film is trying to show. I think the point of the film is that they're basically like turning it into a sport. Like you're missing the point, you're missing the passion, and you're just obsessing over it. You're obsessing with becoming one of the greats, but you're not really getting any satisfaction of reaching that point. It's very much along the lines of something like Black Swan in that sense, where the
True.
passion is
So yeah,
almost taken
I, I
away.
like I like the filmmaking of this. The filmmaking, it holds up as a film, but the fact that it's about jazz
Yes, yes. It's
just doesn't
I
make
like
sense.
I like
Just
watching it. Like it's a movie about a jazz drummer. Like
this
come
is like
on,
a fever dream
let's
of like
go.
the jazz drummer on his like worst nightmare before a gig, and he just has every possible irrational fear going into it. This is the type of movie you cook up in your head when you're just not feeling good and you're trying to work up the nerve to play a gig the next day or something. Like
Well,
that's what this movie feels like to me.
hmm,
I think that 100% fits. Like I don't
right.
know, like I'm not a musician, but it's funny how you said like this destroys the passion of music. This movie made me appreciate drummers way more than I already had.
Hmm.
Like the first time
I
I
can
watched
see
it,
why.
especially,
I
like
can
it just
see why
made me
the.
appreciate
Sorry, yeah, please.
what they're going for. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh yeah.
I can see why the sort of like physicality or the flashiness of how they shoot the drumming in
Mhm.
this might be impressive. Um, I can see why
Absolutely.
The editing in
the
particular
the
is
editing makes it look
fantastic,
very like this motherfucker's running track.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a very visual, kinetic
Sure,
thing
I
to
give
how
you
it's
that.
like the
It's sexy.
cinematography is good, but
Yeah,
if
it's
you actually
sexy.
know how drums are played, some of those close-ups just don't fit.
Well, here's the
Well,
thing:
I mean,
Miles Teller, the actor who plays him, knows how to play the drums
Oh, he knows how to
100%.
play. He does
But the way they
100%. I'm
shoot
just
it
saying
is a little strange. That's the one
they
flaw I have
take
with
you
this
here,
movie.
and the
well,
cuts you see don't always match.
Yeah,
well,
And it
I'm
that's my one flaw with this
significantly
movie.
less interested in now I am a musician and I did go to a school like that. I went to Berklee College of Music, which is
oh yes.
considered one of the best contemporary music schools, if not the best contemporary music school
Mm,
in the world, next to Juilliard, which is more of
mm.
a classical movie.
Just a quick
Theatrical.
aside. I remember I think a couple months ago we covered the Oscars. We talked about this film Coda,
Yeah,
which has a scene where she auditions at Berkeley, and I sent
yeah,
you that clip out of
you did.
context to see how accurate is that.
Not at all.
Why don't you walk us
Nice.
through it, Dill?
I can walk you through the Berkeley
Shit
audition
on
if you'd
Coda.
like.
Shit on Coda.
I'm not going to shit on Coda. I mean, it was as far as like, look, I mean, I've as the older I get at this point, the more I start to appreciate the sort of movie stuff, because
Hmm.
movies are almost a mirror in a particular way. They're
Yeah.
a mirror in the way that music is a mirror in that you get to watch someone's daydreams, and you get to watch the way someone interprets and experiences life. So I can see why, and I understand why they made that Berkeley audition look the way it did, and I should be specific. So I'll start by telling my audition story. Okay, so I attended Humber College in Toronto after high school. Um, I had a pretty rigorous music upbringing in high school. Like I mentioned prior, I learned guitar at 11, self-taught right up until high school, where I uh, decided I really wanted to challenge myself, and in grade 9 I took grade 10 music on drums, because I had been flirting with the drums over the last year and a half, and I wanted to learn how to play jazz drums because the music teacher, Mr. Paul McGovern, who was a very, very, very hard ass motherfucker. Um, his son was the first chair of our school jazz band, which was comprehensive, had a really deep knowledge of tunes. We had A tunes, B tunes, and C tunes. Had about 45 working tunes at a time that you had to have like all the way down.
Damn.
Oh yeah,
Which is staggering for a high school band.
yeah, yeah. That was the A band, and that was when I was in high school. And again, um, it was great. And by the time I graduated, our school had been cut and reduced to borderline nothing.
Damn.
Over the course of 4 years. I mean, it went from being we had 1,000 students to like 650 because it just funding got cut, shit like that. You know, that's Ontario for you. That's austerity though, right? The first
That's
thing that
worst
goes
case
is,
Ontario.
well, that's the thing, right? Ontario, like that's honestly that's austerity. That's just everywhere, right? In its pursuit, in the governmental pursuit of simplicity, um, you end up really severely hurting the quality of life of the working class. I mean, that's just basic class analysis. But um, this guy like I think he put like 15 grand of his own money into this music program. So this
Wow.
dude really meant this meant a lot to this guy. Like I said before, my school had an old gymnasium that was our music room, so it was huge. He had an enormous corner office. We had a whole stage riser that fit a full 35 piece band if we wanted. We had, I helped him draft up like stage. We actually drafted up like stage design or a stage setup for concert band for running wires, and we did it like he taught us how to do it all professionally, like run cable, all that stuff, lighting, everything.
Awesome.
The only thing about this dude is he was a prick, not unlike this Fletcher guy. Now, going back to my issues with this movie, I like what it is trying. I like the idea of a complicated relationship in an art form. I think there's a lot of room for storytelling there. However, this movie makes one absolutely fatal mistake, and it cuts itself right in its own jugular and turns into a piece of shit fucking movie.
What's that mistake?
Whereabout?
When Miles Teller walks into that jazz club,
Oh yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
Yes.
Go on.
and my man is playing literally the shittiest music I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah,
The
he's
most
very
muzak, it's muzak like the type of shit like you play for someone like for 48 hours, like
Just hold
in
music.
order to induce insanity.
So
Like
You're
just
on hold.
awful,
You're on hold.
awful. Like straight up, a lot of the music in this movie is some of the least hip shit I've heard in some
I would.
time.
Oh, please let me. Yeah.
I still loved
okay.
it.
So
Costa, please.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I've been
liked it.
talking for minutes now. Go ahead, bro. But
this.
one of the big things is the music is kind of ass.
I don't mind the
those
tunes that
songs.
they pick here, but none of it is swinging. Not a
Yeah.
single one. Even the one that he throws at him as a curveball at the very end. It's called Upswinging. It's like some like very square big band 7 arrangement. Like it, all the tunes they play are like
This
like
is like pop
I love
jazz.
Caravan. I love Whiplash. I love those like but that doesn't swing. It's like it's like very it's like kind of like
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2,
right
3, 4,
right
5, 6, 7.
Straightforward.
whereas
It's
like
very tough to groove to that.
at Berkeley and Humber I'm sure it was
Yeah.
It's easy going.
Well,
Well,
what I'm
here-
saying is it
here's the thing,
swings.
Costa.
It's
I don't
more-
think
it's
you can
less-
have like a vicious, competitive sounding thing. Like swing sounds very carefree and pleasant, which I think was not what this film was going
okay.
for.
Again,
I didn't think
I
I
gotta
didn't think
I gotta correct the record here.
go for it.
There is a difference between swing and whack, and it Costa I think didn't quite demonstrate.
What I was trying to say is
something
that
can be fast and swing at the same time, and it can have that oomph, and it can have that that thing that jazz has. And this film,
they didn't play any standards. They didn't play a single fucking standard. They played
They-
yeah,
like
but you got to make it more clear to these dudes like what that means.
I remember
like
they
a
had a
swing
real
standard.
Okay, so what's a swing standard?
like a
So-
tune. Yeah, go. Sure.
So a tune like, okay, so if I'm wanting to show, if I'm wanting to show fucking jazz music, I'm not, and I want you guys to see the intensity and the life and the balls and the fucking everything that is involved in jazz music. I want you to also be able to understand what you're looking at and understand why it's impressive. Not because it looks flashy, but it's got to have that bite to it. It has to have that swing to it that Charlie Parker had, or Miles Davis had, or John Coltrane had. Those
Have the right like intent behind it, I think.
intent, but it can also be like, jazz can be a lot of things, but I'm just trying to think of something like
Okay, so the double time swing stuff, like that was a
Yeah.
big sticking point in that whole movie. Yeah, go ahead.
So this, I'll count it off really fast. So this would be like, the Grant Green is a guitar player I really like, and he played swing music. He played a lot of modal music, which is like, not a lot of chords and more vibes is the best way that I can explain it. But he would play shit at an up tempo, and what I mean by up tempo means it's fast, and it has the same intensity that something like Caravan would have. Exactly. 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1.
Man, I wish Distro didn't have lights so that would actually be in time, but I'm just jamming here. I love it.
Yeah, but there's a swing. It's got to have like a.
Oh, I think you cut yourself off there.
Oh no.
No, we can't hear you right now.
Hey, you cut out again.
But just
sorry.
real quick to go back to the point I was trying to make, is they played a lot of 12/8 stuff, and they played a lot of like that tune I was talking about. It just doesn't like it's and the same thing with the Buddy Rich thing is like you would be hard pressed to find a drummer in any modern setting, modern post-secondary setting who would say that their favorite drummer is Buddy Rich. You wouldn't.
Like, look, without necessarily getting into the confusing details, I can certainly say that the movie is like chronically not hip, and as far as its
That's what I'm
actual
saying about the Buddy Rich
representation
thing.
of its actual representation of jazz music is pretty not good. Like,
Would
Yeah.
you say it's like trying to be edgy, like for the sake of being edgy to an extent?
Yes,
Like, is it
I
trying to-
disagree
of course it
immensely with
is.
that.
It's Friday
Yeah.
Night Lights.
There's a
It's
purpose to it.
sure, it's Friday Night Lights, but it's also
Oh, come on.
it's also it is, and it's a teacher that it's also not even alluded. It's directly said that this teacher made a kid hang himself.
Kill himself.
Yes, it did. Yes, he did. The kid, and this is why I get to when I look at this now. This is absolutely unequivocally a cycle of abuse. This is him in his mind. He thinks he's trying to find the next Charlie Parker by swinging fucking chairs at his students, but really,
And the film seems to vindicate him.
The
at
film
the end.
does not remotely vindicate him.
No.
It does not.
Well-
I felt it very purposely left that up in the air. Like, it's not showing, like, did J.K.
Did he
Simmons do a
not
good
kill it, or did he kill it at the
Well,
end with the
he
drums,
killed
or
it
not?
at the end with the drums, but at what cost? That's
What
the
cost?
question. That's
he
the
would walk
dramatic.
off stage, and everybody, like the people that he was there
But
to
that's the
audition for,
dramatic
would offer
question
him a
of the
job.
movie. I don't think the movie makes that crystal clear. I think it's very purposely left that in the air. It's like, was it worth it? Was it not? We don't know, and that's
Here's
good.
the thing. So
That's
from
a
the
good thing.
from the perspective of again, I did go to Berkeley, and I forgot to tell the whole story about my actual audition before, but nobody. That's not how it works.
Okay,
Like at all.
that's fair, but I think there's a lot of thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is
It's just so far from the realm of reality that
yeah.
it's just the entire foundation that they built this abuse story on is so silly and dumb
I don't.
that it's just like the idea to me that this guy, that a student can that it can even be on the table that this teacher's behavior led to a student hanging himself to continue to have a job at this
Well,
school.
they didn't know that
That's
at that point.
and they're teaching him, and they're teaching them like there are so many aspects to what Fletcher just does as an actual musician. Like he counts them off incorrectly. He counts them off at a really weird tempo. He counts them off just wholly, completely wrong a number of
He
times.
insists that the drummer read in like perfect tempo, which
Is utterly
is silly,
borderline
but it's also-
impossible for a lot of people to
also
do.
Really, it's not. It doesn't matter. Hey,
Yeah.
if the sheet says 218 BPM and you accidentally play 224, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't fucking matter.
But he's
As long as you
perfection.
stay
It
at
takes
224,
more
it
than
doesn't
a half
fucking
a
matter.
bar to get up the tempo
The film
anyway, and he
is not
cuts
It also
them
it
off before
doesn't
they
matter-
even
but
gets into it.
again, if you play in a big band, which I have, it nobody even says the word beats per minute. The conductor or the guy who you watch for cues counts you off. And tonight it could
like
tonight
the
it
concert band I'm in right now,
right,
he
or
goes
the
like this,
drummer
he lifts
counts
his
you
hands, and
off.
that's it. No, there is no like.
Yeah.
There's not even a 3/4. He just goes, his hands
Bam.
hit the one, and you just got to be watching.
And you got to be watching. But in this particular
Yeah.
circumstance, a big band, you will be counted off. Like I'll hear him, and he'll go 1,
Which
2,
I would
3,
prefer.
4, 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
and you'd go
I
in.
think
Which, by the way, I just for the layman, quickly, I want to quickly explain how this works so that everybody listening understands. When we count off 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not counting
It's
down.
not for fun.
Well, it's not the same as counting down. Counting down doesn't have to be at tempo. Counting down is to let you know, is to try to synchronize, but to count off is to be and incorporate the time. So the time is the rhythm. So I could give you 2 bars of 4/4, which is 4 beats. So I can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2 bars. So now you know exactly what the tempo is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bum, ba, 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 ba. You know what to play. So you're going to be able to interpret what's in front of you, meaning the notes and the chords on the piece of paper at that tempo, meaning that groove. So if it says 218 BPM, someone's going to hit a metronome for a reference real fast, turn it off, then count in on their interpretation of what they just heard.
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah, I
it
was gonna
happens.
say,
You
like-
know, when we play, play Nosy Neighbors, like sometimes I'll be like, it'll be like, we'll play Moment's Notice, and I'll be like, 1, 2, and Paul will be like, whoa, let's cool that back a bit, and then he'll give me one. Okay, I can deal with that. So let's do that tempo instead. That's not the temp. Like the tempo. The tempo is.
it's like
It's
like a guide.
It's secondary.
It's a feeling.
it's a rough guide of where you want it to feel, but you
Yes.
can change it. You can modulate it to what you're feeling
Yes.
today. Like
Yes.
Sometimes I'll count it off and like dolphin dance and be like, and be like, yeah, that's sex right there. That's what we want right there for that tune.
Hell yeah.
Sometimes
you
you
go.
want it to burn. You
See,
know what I mean?
the
But
6.9 was leading to something.
that's correct.
Hell yeah.
I
Exactly.
will say, like,
Well, if you want to play, a ballad like Buddy's playing at the end, like you can count it off like 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Okay, now I'm starting to worry about copyright strikes.
No, Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no,
No
it's okay.
worries.
But you can see that like you can count off, and there's the tempo there. So it's a lot less. It's not militaristic. And
Well, the
the
reason
idea,
you count off is to synchronize. Like you kind of touched on this a little bit. Like you don't like what I said when I said like we don't do it just for fun. You do it so that everyone is on the same page and it sounds the best it can sound, not because you're trying
Mhm.
to fucking flex.
No,
yeah,
because that's exactly
it's
what Fletcher does. Is that he'll ostracize people and he'll single them out to make an example. Because it's like it's like a power thing that he's on. He's on a
Mhm.
power trip. He's like, I have full control of everybody in this room. I'm gonna belittle them just
Yeah,
right.
because it does
that's
Well, the
something for me.
funniest thing, I mean, I'll tell you what, when I auditioned to get into
Yeah, hit it.
Berkeley,
Come on, hit me.
some of these dudes were some of the hardest hitting musicians of all time, straight the fuck up. Grammy winners, you name it, my private instructor was the same private instructor who taught John Mayer,
Wow.
the guy from Maroon 5.
holy
He
shit.
taught, who
Is that
else?
Funk Man? What Japanese
Tomo
guy?
Fujita. Yeah, if you
Tomo
if you
Fujita.
check out Tomo Fujita on Instagram, he'll fuck you up. He will fuck your mind up. The man's right hand, unbelievable. Um, yeah. So took lessons from him. I took lessons from a fella named Mike Williams. This blues guitar player played with a guy named Clarence Gatemouth Brown, who's this huge blues player. He also played with Ray Charles a couple times.
Damn,
Holy
So
that's legit.
yeah, so I saw you linked Victor Wooten earlier. Victor Wooten is in the bass department. I met him a number of times.
Oh man,
He
you met
was
the guy. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
all the time, all the time. He was
Holy
around
shit.
all the time. Like my friends were actively like in ensembles with him. Where they like their class was just 2 hours of playing bass with Victor Wooten. Like it was just normal.
That's fucking awesome,
Yeah,
man.
that's
Holy
badass.
shit.
That's what you're paying for. That is
Yeah,
They
what you're
need a
paying
documentary on you, man.
that's cool. And I my so one of the head of the songwriting department which I was in was the brother of James Taylor, like the guy who wrote Fire and Rain.
Holy
and
shit.
and I met James Taylor at my coffee shop around the corner on Mass Ave, like coming down the street to visit his brother Livingston. Like I was
It's
very that
always a
was
coffee shop.
yeah, well that's where I
for.
was
You need
hanging out. I
coffee.
like coffee because I was smoking mad cigarettes at the time. um,
Smoking
Oh
cigs,
yeah.
coffee shop, jazz.
I
That's the
play
perfect
jazz, baby.
picture right there.
That's it.
That's the life.
I
No,
grew up
but
playing.
are you still off
I'm
the
legit.
darts there, Dylan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's
But
been
yeah,
just over a
I
year for
think
me
the
too.
only time music ever gets super deliberately militaristic is if they're in a drum line, which was another movie I was
Yes,
considering for
absolutely. I
this.
mean, look,
You know?
that's something that's a world I can't speak on. But as far as the world of jazz, I can tell you if any person walks into an ensemble at Berkeley and tries to count off Whiplash by going 5, 6, 7, and then
No, no,
throwing
no. He said 5, 6, and
what?
5,
Five, six,
6,
and
and. Bun, dun, 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 bun, dun, dun, dun.
That's how you count off dance, my
Don't give
man.
him more energy.
That's how you count off dance. You count off dance class like that, not music. That's literally
yeah.
the opposite.
Yeah,
That is
it's
the
those
worst
things
way
like
to
that
count
too,
off
right?
that tune.
Yeah, that was a little
Uh,
weird.
Oh yeah.
so there's that. There's another section. There's another section of the film where they're in practice, and I'm noticing there's like the B drummer has to like sit there next to
No,
him
yeah,
while he
that's a big
To,
no.
to,
plays. Is
to
also
turn his
not.
pages, and then he's
That's
sort of
not a thing.
rotating. He's rotating all three of them to do this double time swing, and to basically.
Oh yeah, that's so
Oh,
dumb. That
they're
is beyond
bleeding all
dumb.
over the drum set as well. Like that's
Also, like
reckless
P.S.
and
You should
dangerous.
never bleed
so
on a drum
again, I
set.
just want to quickly say, like, for the people, like you guys are kind of glossing over it, but for like people who don't know, like nobody you turn your own goddamn pages
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
your own book, like your own moldy ass music that has coffee stains on it,
And here's
or
the thing too, being a drummer, like to speak further to that real quick, is that like when you are behind the drum kit, it's incredibly hard to move your music. This is something that non-drummers don't realize is that there's almost like it's really fucking hard to flip a page when you have to stand up when you're supposed to be seated playing your instrument. Like it's and oftentimes my music is positioned in a way so that I can see the music as well as the conductor in those scenarios, right? Even not
Yeah.
in scenarios when there's no conductor, like with the quartet kind of thing. But like in that specific scenario, like it's got to be in front of my drum kit. I can't even reach my music unless I stand up from that position. So I
Yeah.
have to set up my music in a way that I
Right.
don't have to turn any pages, which a lot of people don't have to deal with.
It's like, yeah, I actually I remember this. Yeah, the drummer in our school band, even in high school, I think they would just have all the pages sprawled out so that
Yep,
you don't
right.
have to
yep.
change anything. It's just all there. You have it there as a reference, but more often than not, you're kind of memorizing if it's basic, kind of
I
beat
PS,
used to
stuff. But
do
you
like an
just have
arts
it
and
there
crafts
so that
thing.
you can all see it as a glance, and more importantly, you're seeing the conductor, so you get the timing.
Yeah.
yep.
So my high school teacher would we would do this thing like where we would stay after class once like after school once a week and like tidy up the room and clean the fucking instruments, all that shit. And he would have
That's
us
an
like
important thing that we never see, and I it's like, well, he says to clean the blood off the drum kit, but I don't know the
right.
maintenance of.
Okay, that's another that's another thing. I mean, look,
You should
if
never
I'm
bleed if you're playing your instrument
if you're
correctly.
playing your instrument properly, you're not bleeding. If
Yeah,
you're playing your instrument properly, you're relaxed. If you're
Yeah.
playing, especially the drums more than any instrument, you should be relaxed.
When I saw him, oh, shit.
He's like
Um,
practicing, and like this idea of double time swing is also wrong because
when I saw the blood for the first time, I was
yeah,
just like, yeah, it is, by the way. But like,
just like chill
when
the
I saw
fuck
the
out,
blood
dude.
for I was just like, where is this guy bleeding from? Where the fuck could that blood be from? Like, how did that happen?
Like
That
apparently
didn't
it's from
happen from
like his
playing the
hand, from
drum.
like the stick rubbing on his hand or something. I think that's what
Yeah,
from a
they're.
that's
blister.
But like, so I know a guy that I worked with, and I worked in like a factory, and this guy's into music, but I tried jamming with him one time, and he, it isn't that well practiced in it. It's something he's wanted to do for years, but he's, older than I am, and he would get mad or frustrated himself anytime like he would try to play a fill outside of the beat, and he would mess up, and then he would just get mad at himself, and he's just so wound up tight all the time, and you just can't work with anybody like that playing music. Like
Well,
if they're
you know
so
that
if
sounds
they're
like somebody who has either negatively reinforced themselves to get to that point where they are, or learned incorrectly, or had someone teach them incorrectly. And that's I like I I think guitar teachers are really bad for this shit, almost more than anybody else. It's so if you can play the guitar moderately well, you can teach guitar generally, or at least you can get a job teaching guitar. But most people teach it in such a way where it's immediately frustrating. So much they put a year's worth of work right up front, and they're like, all right, time to spend the next year and a half like memorizing chords, working your fingers in until they're calloused, learning scales, all of this absolute misery, hours and hours and
tuning.
hours, tuning, you name it, uh, it's front loaded, right? And
Yeah.
you don't really get to the playing music part until what? You gotta pass through how many glass ceilings to get to the point where you can play your first song. That's insane
yeah.
to me. And the idea that anybody is trying to teach someone music by saying the faster you play, therefore the better you play, or the harder you hit the cymbal, therefore the better, that's really bad and dumb.
No, yeah, that was
And if it's
I
if
mean,
it's a football movie, if it's Coach Carter, like I get it. Coach Carter's had they it, I get that this is supposed to be sort of a morally gray area and a story of abuse, and I understand that. And I think that if they'd have done it they could do it in a particularly cool way where it could be still abusive. But if the music, if this is a music movie with like unhip music, like an unhip teacher who doesn't know how to really like do anything properly. He's like saying we have an out of tune player in this band. It's like, wait, what? Like that's also not the case. That's not what would happen. You know, if some,
Uh-huh.
usually 99% of the time it's like, I've got the brass section here, which is comprised of trumpets, trombones, um, and then I've got reeds, which is soprano saxophone potentially, two alto saxophones, um, a tenor saxophone or two and a baritone saxophone,
Mm.
and that's the reed section. And if you have strings, you'll have your viola, you'll have your violin, you'll have your cello, you'll have your upright, or you'll have your double bass, contrabass. There's that section. You'll have your percussion section. If there's timpanis, those can be tuned. And then you have your rhythm section. Again, if it's a jazz band, um, you know, which is guitar, bass, and drums. So what you're going to do if you're a teacher is you're going to say, hey, there's a section, something sounded a little funny to me, like, and you'll parse it down by the section. Which section is out of tune? All right, well, let's just get that back together real
Yeah,
fast.
like everybody just plays a B flat, and if it sounds like you're wobbling, then you know, okay, I might be out of tune. I'm just gonna slide in and out of here. And no, that absolutely hit me right in the gut when he was berating the trombone player who wasn't even out of tune. He just started yelling at him because he was just like too afraid to speak up for himself. And he kicks
Yeah,
him out. And he says, "For the record, you were the one that was actually out of tune, but the fact that he didn't know was bad enough. You're not expected to like know that necessarily. You want to get a sense of it, but no, you go through every section and everyone just plays a B flat or whatever the tune is, and you just adjust accordingly to make sure that everyone's playing the same
Well, it's
B
a similar
flat."
thing. It's a similar thing to the tempo. Is that like it's much more important to have good sympathetic tempo and good sympathetic pitch than it is to have
yes,
perfect pitch. Like,
yes,
yes, and we don't want to be out of tune, but like how unless you have a fucking unless you're playing a MIDI instrument, it's gonna be out of tune to some scent. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? If you want to get right down to it, like so,
right. And that is a part of this movie that I dislike. And I think what
Mm.
this movie's informed by, and I think this is informed by like this misunderstood sense of individualism, and it's grafted onto the arts, a place where it just does not belong.
Hmm.
I can see again this story being put on, in jazz, but again, it would have to be a different style of abuse, because almost everything Fletcher does in this, even down to his understanding of Charlie Parker, is wrong. Just
Hmm.
completely incorrect. Like he genuinely is a whack musician. Like,
and the film makes mention multiple times of the fact that Joe Jones threw a cymbal at Charlie Parker's head. No, when Charlie Parker was blowing a solo, Joe Jones dropped a cymbal. I think it was a China cymbal on the ground
to
and
gong him off
to
stage.
gong him. He didn't throw it. He didn't try to fucking hurt him. Like what
And it
kind of
was
idiot
No,
also
would
yeah.
do
because
that?
Charlie Parker was strung out on junk that night.
Yeah, so I think the story could have been much better if it was more nuanced for sure, because I think that is what this film is missing.
They did
It
not
really
have
rides
a
on
good
like
consult when it comes to
it really
like
fits on like fever dream logic, and this is someone who's fascinated by music but doesn't know music, I
And
think.
it's also,
It
again,
shows
it's also incredibly reactionary, this movie. Like it
very.
it 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 exists to say, you know you need to bleed for what you do, for in order to get any sense of satisfaction, because it, otherwise, what's the point, right? It sort of gives this sort of self-sacrifice, or almost like this individual circumstance, like I alone am in charge of how good this band will be. There's
Hmm.
no made mention of, you know Miles Teller's ability to vibe with the bass player, who really is in charge of the time,
Yeah.
frankly, especially in jazz music. Because in jazz music, if you've ever heard what a walk is bass notes on quarter notes. Boom, 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 boom. That's, you get an
Yeah.
immediate sense of where the tune is going.
Hmm. So
Drummers,
we
I
get
can guarantee you, that not one fucking person generally is listening to the drummer like that. It's just
no.
not. You don't need
You're
a
not listening
drummer
to the
to.
bass drum like that. That's for sure.
It's
You're not listening to a low
ridiculous
note.
to even think that. Like, again, if anybody has credentials on this, it's me. Like, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't just like snap 218 BPM.
No, fun
If
fact,
I
he
really
actually
focused
does.
and honestly, like, and shedded and like practiced for, like, I don't know, if you guys, like, if I hung up from this right now and like took 15 minutes, I could probably get real close, just based on
mm,
my familiarity and understanding of music. But
sure.
again, it's sympathetic. like Costa said.
There you go.
Like, if you
And
drop,
I think that's
drop
what
a
this
it's a
film
tempo,
range of
lacks is
tempo,
that's it.
sympathy.
not a.
I think this film lacks like sympathy, and we got to wrap up. Unfortunately, we're going late. I would love to talk about this for hours, but
Me too.
yeah, I do want to say, yeah, I love how this discussion is going, and I think ultimately this film falls victim to the thought that like you have to be miserable in order to create great art, and really being depressed and miserable takes away from your ability to be artistic.
But there are
Yeah.
so
And this,
many. I have a counter argument. There are tons of artists that are miserable and depressed, though.
well, no,
That's
they've
something
gone
But
through
that doesn't help
they've gone
them.
through misery and depression, but that doesn't help them create
I
art. It's the fact
eh.
that they strive to get out of it to create art,
It's a
to
deep,
reflect on that.
it's deeply.
I just want to wrap up. Like, I seriously have to go. I'm sorry, guys. We
I
have
know,
to wrap up.
but no,
No
I
worries.
so I agree with that. The closest thing that this movie has ever, like, you know, when he's braiding the trombonist, the only time that I could relate to that ever happening was one time I was in school band, and I was playing bass guitar, and I was sitting right next to my amp, and you think the closer I sit to my amp, the better I can hear myself. The thing with bass frequencies, they're a lot longer. You actually have to be further away from your amp to really hear those bass frequencies. And I was just cranking my bass amp up so loud so I could hear myself when I was sitting next to it. And, you know, he let me play for a minute, but then he kind of stopped everybody and he looked at me saying, well, this is basically Devin's band now because all I can hear is him. And he said it as like a joke, like he was singling me out, and it was kind of, you know, embarrassing a little bit, but it was mostly kind of humorous. Like
It
I'm
was in
cranking
good
my
fun.
bass. It was
It
in
was
good fun, and
evidently in good fun.
everybody laughed. I laughed at myself
Right.
because, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm definitely over cranking this bass, because and I was always advocating
Look,
to, you know,
and
hearing the bass in the music, but yeah.
I have been a band leader many times. I've had to tell people that they're not playing well, and you know there are ways to do it, good and bad ways to do it, and there are more
You don't
interesting
throw a
ways to
chair
do
at
it than.
somebody's head.
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, look, and even if you do, it could have been done more interesting in than the way it was done in this movie. I mean, the
Fair enough.
Fletcher was whack. Buddy Rich is no one gives a shit. Straight up, no one cares about Buddy Rich. Nobody.
Not
Um,
in those settings.
nobody cares about Buddy Rich, and they wouldn't. They
Oh,
probably wouldn't be playing swing and practicing Buddy Rich type shit in the practice rooms anyway. They'd be playing like hip hop infused jazz because that's what everyone is playing nowadays. Um,
And for like 10 years or more.
oh man.
Like
much
when this
longer than
came
that,
out.
15 years or so. Yeah.
Well,
Oh
that's
man.
yeah.
So
Anyway,
we have to wrap up. I'm sorry.
yeah. Thanks for having us
I
on
got a
there,
call,
boys.
Yeah,
but
it's been
no,
fun.
I'll just give it a quick rating.
Yeah, I'm
This
sorry,
movie is
guys.
tragically unhip. I had to say that.
Hey, he did it.
Upon first watching this, I would have given this film a 7, maybe a 6.9. Upon
Aw,
re-examination, it's a 3.4.
Hey,
9.6 out of 10. It's.
You're fucking
Ooh.
kidding me.
Here's my counter argument.
Wow.
Here's my counter argument.
I'm ready.
There
I'm
are
ready.
plenty of inaccuracies in the film. That's what's preventing it from being a 10. However, Jurassic Park. I'm huge into paleontology. I'd say I'm as passionate about paleontology as you guys are about music. At least from a respect perspective. I'm not a paleontologist myself, but it's very much one of those in another life.
You like dinosaurs, okay?
Yeah, in another life,
Me
I feel
too.
like that's something it could be. Jurassic Park has tons of inaccuracies to paleontology. Tons.
Jurassic Park
Almost
is about
this
bringing
many.
dinosaurs back to life. This is about a jazz band.
But the point
I see where
Stan
you're going
is
with.
leaning on it, but my whole thing is, I don't know, when a film is just really good and really well done and really well produced and written, I just don't care about that stuff. That all just fades away to an extent. And I'm not a musician. I like it known I'm not a musician. I probably never will be. So maybe my opinion doesn't matter. That's
I
fair.
enjoyed
find
and
it
related with
interesting-
pieces of. I enjoyed and related with pieces of this movie. Absolutely, I watched it front to back, and the first time I watched it, I was entertained. But I
Okay.
could see like
Yes,
all the holes
is
like really,
entertaining,
really
but
quickly
it's-
for a movie that got as many, as much love as it did.
first
There's, like,
watch, it's vaguely entertaining. Yeah, totally.
What would you guys give it out of 10?
I'd say it.
Go
I
ahead,
think either
Costa.
way, it hits a raw nerve, and I guess my argument is whether that's for a good reason or not.
Hmm.
But it does certainly hit a
it
raw
sends
nerve,
to
and it
me
does
a
connect
a strange
to a
message
lot
at
of.
the end because he says,
Yeah.
I think he says "good job" off the camera. Like you
Mhm.
can't see his mouth, but he says "good job,"
Yeah.
Even though he
And
said
there's
that
no
was the worst thing. And hey, guess what? He got his Charlie Parker, even though he's like a total piece of shit.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's probably
Um,
gonna die from a heroin overdose when he's 34. But it'll be worth it because he'll be talked about at dinner tables.
And straight up, to be quite honest, if that's how he plays and that's how he practices, probably not. Like, I know kids that are fucking 18 years old that play that are like half baked on 3 blunts,
and
and
walk circles
fucking,
around his kid.
4 Advils, was up till 4 in the morning playing GTA. It could play fucking circles around this guy straight the fuck up.
All right,
You know what I
ratings.
mean? Like, it's just not a push up thing. So I give this like a 3, easy.
Dylan.
Yeah, I would say
Nice.
like
Oh, wait, sorry.
I
Music
will
is
give
not
it.
a push-up contest, straight up. And there's a better way to make an abuse story out of music. There just
Okay.
is.
I would say 5 because I did enjoy it, but like it's
Fair enough.
I watch it and yeah.
It's
The
frustrating.
3 is because Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons are like both like heavyweights. They're very, very good.
Again,
very
I
good.
could have this
They
discussion
are.
forever, and I want to. I would love to pose the question for a future time. What type of music movie would you like to see that would one up this in every way? That'll be
Ooh.
something that we'll have for a future discussion.
Hmm.
Actually, that might bleed a little bit into what we have. What do we have next week, Ian?
Hey, good segue. First off, fantastic work, you two. You've been fantastic. I've been terrible this episode. I'm genuinely feeling down that Vangelis passed away. There's personal stuff going on in my life that's bugged me. So thank you so much for putting up
Well,
with me
I'm
tonight and
very
being
sorry
here.
to hear that. I hope it all
No,
gets
it's no
resolved
excuse.
Hey, no,
soon.
It's no excuse for
no,
being shit.
Ian, I have
hey,
to say,
look, man, if you don't
as
need
a
an
host,
excuse, I'm showing you some compassion. It's all right. It's all love, man. I hope it all gets
Nice.
resolved soon. I do.
Ian, I have to say, I'm glad that you brought up the counter arguments because it made for a better discussion, and you also had a lot of
Yeah.
restraint on your half. You really gave
Yeah.
these guys the floor to really talk about their expertise. So I
And
think you did a great
yeah,
job
I
as
do
a host
appreciate that
today.
a lot. And
You
frankly,
guys are
like,
so cool. Like it's how could I not
That,
give you
that's
the
the
floor?
thing. Musicians are cool as fuck, and this movie isn't. You know?
Hey.
well,
Uh,
I mean, look, there's something to be said about what music really is, and music is what we're doing now. It's a conversation just with different words. Period.
There you
And
go.
you
God.
can be funny, you can be mean, you can be all kinds of things, but it's very hard to abuse someone with music. Period.
Hell yeah.
Right. Next week, I'm hoping to get my friend Daryl Ailes back on. Maybe I could get his now pregnant wife. Congratulations, you two, once again. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe get those two back on board for musical satires, where musical accuracy does not matter. We are talking about This Is Spinal Tap, Walk Hard, a Dewey Cox story, which I haven't seen, and
Oh my
Tenacious
God.
D.
It's you are in
Pick
for
of Death.
that.
Oh,
That is
I'm
a
I'm
hilarious movie, man.
genuinely excited.
That one
I've
gets
heard
the
great
like.
things.
I'm I also studied music history, so I'm kind of a musicologist. That one gets the musicologist 100 fucking A plus S tier god
I
rank.
You
can't
guys are
wait.
welcome to on next week too if you want.
Yeah, please, by all means.
We'll see what I'm up to. I might just do that.
Yeah, if you guys
So
are free,
Spinal
we could use
Tap,
more
Watch
drum
Hard,
songs.
and what's the third one, Ian?
Oh, speaking of Jack Black, Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny, which I haven't seen
Hell
since I was a
yes.
kid.
Damn.
You haven't
Uh,
seen that either. What?
No, since I was a kid. Since I was a kid, I watched it on YTV, just
Oh.
like School of Rock. It all ties together. Thank you all so much for listening, and is it first day yet? Stay tuned for Conan. Peace out, and rock on. Listen, let some let out.
Jeez.